Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. My 70-50 rule and how that equals 100%. I'm sorry, if you were looking for a math lesson, this is about financial freedom, not algebra. This is probably one of the contributing factors to me retiring, and if not the reason I was able to retire early, it was part of the plan to be able to retire early, to understand this in advance, to set the strategy in motion before I got there. Uh, this is not about algebra. What this really is about is leverage. And for all the old people, leverage. It's what brings us together today. All leverage matters. There are different stages to investing, kind of like a chess game. In chess, you have a beginning, opening phase where you're deploying the strategy that fits you. Mid game, and the strategy shifts based on what you and your opponent have done. Is it a closed game? Is it an open game? And then the end game, how you wrap things up. Investing is very similar, especially when it comes to leverage. In the opening game, the most risky period, it's not easy to get leverage. Lenders put things in the way, like you need a credit score, you need a debt to income ratio that makes sense to them. Maybe you need work history. Maybe you need a certain net worth if you're going with a DSCR loan. So there's these barriers in the beginning that kind of force you to prove to the lenders you know what you're doing. So the struggle, even though there's a lot of first-time buyer programs that will let you put low money down or no money down, that first property you might be over levered in, too much leverage. There is too much, and in my opinion, there is too little. I paid off a property once and it cost me $1 million. I've actually made a video about that. I lost $1 million because I paid off $121,000 on a property. Not my best move. Not something I regret, but not my best move. Not my favorite move. When in growth mode, that opening move of chess, we want to acquire good debt. Yes, there's three different types of debt. Good debt is one I want to acquire. One of the goals is to stop making the other types. I had the opportunity to use a VA loan to acquire properties, and I've never used it. I don't want to be 100% levered. So even when I bought my first duplex that was a house hack, I, yes, Dividend Dave, that was the princess voice, Princess Bride voice, the most quoted movie of all time. I put 5% down on that first duplex. And there's a couple other reasons why I wanted to keep my VA loan as an option in the future and not utilize some of my available amount that I could borrow. But if you're 100% levered, right, use a VA loan, use a first-time home buyer program where you don't have any money in the deal and you have to sell, even if property values don't go down, let's just say they stay flat, you're going to be writing a big check to lose that asset. Like it costs money to pay agents. There's transaction fees. There could be some concessions that the buyer talks you into. So I wanted to be able to walk away from a deal if I had to without having to write a check. I might lose the money I have in the deal, but I don't want to have to write a check. So my target goal in growth phase was a 70% loan to value. Now, this is not a perfect science, right? My first duplex, I put 5% down on. That means that I had about 5% equity. Yeah, the appraisal can come in higher, it can come in lower, and then you've got to pay the difference. But I then saved for 2 years before I bought the next duplex. That was 2 years of appreciation, 2 years of the tenants paying down the principal, increasing that gap from 95 closer towards my target goal of 70%. I want 70% because in growth phase, we want the power of leverage working in our favor. We want levered appreciation right? I put down 5%, which was $15,000 on a $300,000 duplex. When it went up 5% the next year, it wasn't 5% on my $15,000 down payment. It was 5% on 300,000. Basically, in a year, I doubled my down payment. I've still never touched equity. I don't like the idea of adding debt to an existing asset, but that's how net worth grows. So I want that I want to say amplifying effect, that rocket fuel on my net worth growth of having the ability to gain the appreciation on the money the bank puts in the deal. Even though the tenants are going to pay them back, the bank doesn't get the appreciation I do. I also want what's called levered depreciation. Even though the properties go up in value, our government, because Congress is full of people who owns properties that keep making laws that benefit people who own properties, it's the weirdest thing. I get to tell the government over 27 and a half years that the buildings on my properties are older, and I get to take 127.5, not sure how to say that math in words, of the value off against the rental income from that property. A decade, more than a decade now of investing, a couple $100,000 a year in profit after all expenses, after taxes, insurance, after future expenses, after setting aside for 15% for what's going to happen in the next few years. I still haven't paid a penny in rental income tax. That depreciation is amazing. And when you lever it, it's even more amazing. Amazinger? Just. Words are hard. So 70% loan to value gives me that sleep well at night. I have a big enough margin to handle things like a pandemic, stock market crash, recession, depression, double dip recession, rents flatlining, increased expenses. Since we've started tracking the data on nationwide rents since 1940, there's never once been a market-wide rent reduction. There has been years where it didn't go up as fast. But I'm planning on rents going down, even though we've never seen it in my life market wide. There are some local markets that do, and I diversify by being spread out. I'm not all in one town or not even one county. But I'm planning for what could go wrong. So that 70% loan to value is good for growth mode. The end game of chess is very different than the opening or mid game. In the end game, it's very rare to trade pieces unless you're trapping somebody. With investing, that end game is usually when we lose the drug that kills our dreams. We stop getting a paycheck. We stop having that consistent every couple of week payment that comes in and bolsters our accounts up and makes us feel like I'm not out of the workforce. Age isn't going to be counted against me if I have to go back to work because I'm already at work. I'm probably earning more because I've been here a while. But when you walk away from it and you start the timer of you haven't worked for a while, industry's changed, getting a job might be difficult, the career you worked in might go away. The fear goes up. So what we do is we want to mitigate the risk that comes from having that steady income go away, which is the goal for investing for most of us. Sometimes it's not the goal we start with, but it is the goal we end up with once we realize the power of time freedom. See my videos on the math of time, the number 19, why you should retire as soon as possible, and one I have coming out soon on financial freedom is the fountain of youth, and I can prove it. So when I retired in 2022, after say I closed on a duplex in 2013, retired in 2022, so 9 years of owning rentals that I purchased as rentals, but about 12 years of saving to invest had passed. So a bit more than a decade to reach financial freedom, and I retired. I stopped wanting as much leverage on my properties. I still want leverage. Remember, paying off a property has cost me $1 million. I do not want paid off properties. There's even another benefit I'm going to talk about to having loans on these properties. But I want levered appreciation, levered depreciation, but a bigger margin for things to go sideways because they do. So I took the 70% loan to value target and lowered it to 50%. So my target goal is to have a 50% loan to value. My properties aggregate together a gross value a little over $7 million now. I owe about $1.5 million. So if you could do the math, I'm way under 50% loan to value. I don't like it. I'm probably going to add a mortgage to the house that I did that was a burr, which will reduce my monthly cash flow, but give me four or five hundred thousand dollars to put to work on something else, or buy a boat, or maybe go on a date. That's not enough though. I want my loan to value closer to 50%. And I didn't do the math. Whatever it's at is too low. So when you're investing, people talk about, do you pay off your mortgages? Do you want your mortgages paid off? No, I want to maintain a certain loan to value on my entire portfolio so that I'm getting levered appreciation, levered depreciation, and the last thing I want is paid off properties because I have 8 properties. The one I paid off and one I purchased cash. Those two are the only ones without mortgages. The other 6, I have the bank in first position on those properties, which does a couple of things. Your insurance company knows if there's a mortgage on your property or not. So if there's an issue with insurance, they're going to be fighting you and your lender, not just you. And the bank is in first position, which gives me a form of asset protection. Like there's 3 forms of asset protection that I use. One of them is I want the bank in first position. That's why I'm probably going to add a mortgage on either my paid off property or the house that I'm burred, the duplex that I'm burring, my first and last burr, and use that money to buy another property with a mortgage. And for the first time, I might actually use a VA loan and go 100% levered on that property because the 100% leverage on that property will bring my overall portfolio leverage position closer to the 50% that I would like. So that I'm getting more levered appreciation, more levered depreciation. The property I'm in and the property I'm purchasing would have the asset protection of having a mortgage. This I call my 70 plus 50 equals 100% rule. 100% confidence to grow a portfolio comes from having the right amount of leverage. 100% confidence to walk away from a job that I love that had golden handcuffs and not look back and not regret it because money is nice. And I like the sports ball quote, when you don't have enough money, it's the only thing. And once you have enough money, it's just a thing. Walking away from that job and getting the time freedom to do what I want, when I want, where I want, who I want with, without having to check the price tag is more important than any job could be to me. I hope this rule makes you think about your portfolio, your investing strategy. There's probably a version of this that applies to margin. And if you watch guys like Joe Kuhn, who invested in stocks and retired at the age of 54, maybe ask him how he does it. But in real estate, for me, it was 70% to grow, 50% in retirement. In about a month and a day or two, I hit 3 years of retirement. And I sleep like a baby because I have 50% loan to value or less, right? I don't want to have uh, that 50 going in the wrong direction. What's your target goal? Let me know in the comments below. That intro will come out all by itself. A couple of housekeeping things here for the rest of the video tonight. Today's video, if this is your first time to my channel, I do an intro that generally I want to last 10 minutes. 13. That's probably the closest I've ever been, 10 minutes. The rest of this video will be dedicated to answering the questions you have on reaching financial freedom, investing in real estate, bad parenting advice, worse relationship advice, hair care products if you like, and I'll even answer the ruined questions. Um, Coming up in about 3 weeks, I will be on the BiggerPockets channel doing a live webinar. When I know the actual date and time, I will let everybody know that watches to please show up and show some support. I'm the keynote speaker for a keynote speaker for BiggerPockets in October in Las Vegas on the 5th, 6th, and 7th for BPCon 2025. I'm super excited about being invited to that. And if you use the code Dion50, it still gets $50 off your ticket to get in. I think right now they still have the early bird special going on. And if you're one of the people who buy by June 15th, you get free access to one of their $300 courses at the event without the $300 charge. That's what free means. Like I said, words are hard. Next week, next Tuesday, a friend of mine, Mel Dorman, got her TED Talk put out. And I'm going to put a link to the TED Talk and I'll pin it in the comments below afterwards. She has a cool story on how she got started investing and where it's at now. Next week, she will be on here for this video to answer questions. So next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific. After you watch her TED Talk, if you have questions, write them down, show up like we prepared, and try to stump both of us. Howdy, Frank. Good to see you here from Watsonville, California. I'm very sorry you still live in California. I'm able to say it without adding commie to it. Jason, howdy. I saw your email. Can you check your email when you get a chance? I have a question about my tenant's response. Too much to ask here. I appreciate it because your tenant sent you back basically an inspection report of the things that they would like you to fix and agree to. And let me know if I got this right or wrong. You binder strategied them and they said, sure, we agree to this increase, but here's the things we'd like addressed. This stove only has two working burners. These are tenants that were in place when you bought it. Probably things you knew from the inspection report. How many of those were things you were going to address? Agree to all of them. The more that you can agree that you were going to do, seems like you're more agreeable. Any of the big expensive things, Jason, where the tenant is asking for something that's unreasonable, I did not have time. I literally saw your comment, looked at your email, had enough time to see what it was. I can look through it more in detail later. If there's anything like they say, well, we want this bedroom added, or we want this den converted to a bedroom, or something that would be big, you have partners you have to check with before you can agree to that. So the small things that you knew that you were going to do that are in your purview, that you know aren't going to be very expensive or too expensive, or even if they're expensive, if you were planning on doing them anyway, you can acquiesce to that request. But those things that you're not sure about, that you're like, I don't know if I want to do that, this entire community is your partners. Ask us and we'll tell you. And then you can go back and go, my partner said this is a good idea, or my partner said you are tards, and I'm not doing that. That's what I would suggest in that scenario. So yeah, there's a lot more detail than what I just said and more things to break down, but I would break it down into gonna do these anyways, gonna check with my partners on these, and probably not gonna do these. But things like the stove, find a local appliance place, find a stove for 400 or 500 bucks. I don't know what it's like in your market, but in Washington, there's several appliance places that'll do free delivery, free pickup, used appliances. Stove is $500 or less, full 1 year warranty, full replacement. Like if they'll swap it out, um, you might have to hunt around to find an appliance place like that. But if you're in Washington, where there is no R, for me, it's TV Time Appliances, which lets you know how long they've been around. How long has it been since somebody had a TV repaired? But TV Time Appliances in Lake Hood, Washington. That's one of my favorites. They're not an affiliate, or I'm not an affiliate. They're not a sponsor. I've just had really good dealings with that company. Wayne, howdy. Good to see you. Freedom Works, howdy. JR, are you old enough to know who shot JR? Dividend Dave, who did shoot JR? Huh. I don't think I had a TV when that show was on. JMFS, howdy. I'm about to have my first tenant this August. I'm not completely prepared, but it's long overdue. I want out of a very toxic university job. Well, awesome. That's a good start. Maybe, possibly, if you're at a institution that leans a little to the left, whether you do or not, I don't care. Everybody's welcome here. But I have a friend who is a teacher who has 76 rentals or something like that last time I talked to him. He can't mention it. He can't talk about it at work because owning a rental is considered economic violence by the left and it would cost him his job. So while I worked at a CDL school and was announcing to everybody, I am buying rentals. Hell, I'm gonna make a YouTube channel and share how to do this. It helped me. The owners knew that it was potentiality that my rents got so high that I might leave. In the last couple of years I was there, my pay went up significantly and I got those golden handcuffs. And they were really cool people, but I get they were trying to keep me around. Letting people know what I was doing helped me. I don't know if that's the case for you, but my email, I will put in the chat. Uh, Feel free, send an email, ask me questions about that first time purchase, first tenant, however it's going. Maybe I can help you with something. I don't charge for answering emails. If you want a Zoom call, that's different. You can go to diontalk.com, book that. I try not to do those. I'm way too lazy. And anybody who buys my paid for course right now, Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person, gets a free Zoom call with a free follow-up in like a month. So if you're one of the people who bought the course and we haven't had our call yet, remind me it's time to have that call, at least the first one. There's a lot to go over. And all of my information that I go is here on my YouTube channel, but it's in thousands of videos. Um, JMFS, your name seems familiar. Seems like you've been around a bit. But I recommend checking out Millennial Mike's channel, Lumberjack Landlord's channel, One Rental at a Time, Michael Zuber's channel, getting the information, asking questions. Lumberjack Landlord does live every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, except this week. Don't forget, that's how my memory works. Reverse squirrel. Matt the Lumberjack Landlord is on the Raging Tomato YouTube channel this week, Thursday, 6 p.m., debating capitalism versus insanity or socialism. I forget what they called it, but it's something like that. Uh, it's an us versus them conversation, and we should show up and support Matt. I don't believe she will be as Twitter-pated as she was with Mike, so Matt might have a bigger fight on his hands. Retired 2019. Howdy, saw a comment from you earlier where you retired and you said, what did you say in your comment? It was a good one. But recognize the name. I appreciate every comment that everyone leaves. Let me tell you, I'm doing YouTube to try to share this information to show people you can make work optional. So work is optional. And yes, I travel a lot and I scuba dive a lot and I take a lot of naps. But it's very sad if I open up my YouTube app and I go to my YouTube app and I open up the studio and I go to respond and there's no messages. That's a very sad Dion day. I look forward to answering your questions or just saying hello if you could say hi. I'm watching this video I found from you did 3 years ago or something. Matthew, time to make a drink. Cheers. Duplex Dave, greetings, mortals. Mikey, howdy. Good to see you here. Like I said, yes, it's stiff drink time. Flavio, howdy. Good afternoon, everyone from Grandview, Washington. Nice. They done California to our Washington. That was a Princess Bride voice, a terrible, terrible one. As you wish. Ditto. You must have fun storming the castle. Exactly. See? There we go. And then my chat moved, which I appreciate. There's more chats because I love the questions. Remember, this lasts as long as the questions do. I would do a 24-hour live stream, but everybody has to sleep. It's weird. Laura, howdy. Good to see you here. Olayinka Stephen. Olayinka. That's a cool name. How do you say it? Olayinka? Olayinka. Yeah. Cool. Howdy. Unless that's like an acronym and I'm just screwing it up. JMS, I don't know how to do all the depreciation and paperwork chess. Me either, and I don't want to. That's a great way to put it. I don't want to know how that works. I know some of the terms and why I don't do segregation studies, but I hire a CPA. The day you own a rental, you hire a CPA because we don't want to know how depreciation works. Is it amortized? Is it scheduled? Is it bonused? Who cares? The CPA will know how to put it in there. That's what we pay him for. I love the chess analogs. Good. I've always wanted to try to play chess. I didn't play a friend of mine throw the queen away and then have a 17 minutes game to see who could play better. Anna K. I set the computer to 2100, and if I win in 1.5 minutes, I win. If it takes longer than that, I lost. Howdy, Anna. How are you? Jason, howdy. Curtis, question. Found a possible roommate with no cat, but so young, no low credit history, but has a job and history of paying rent. Cosigner. Is it possible to find a cosigner with low or no credit history? So something else I would consider with a roommate situation. First of all, non-smoker, non-pets. That's what matters to you. Was their car clean when you met them? Was the inside of their car clean? You're a big guy. Maybe you meet where they live now to do an interview. And I don't recommend it to most people. I'm a former law enforcement, former Marine. I don't go anywhere, not even the bathroom, without a firearm. So I'll meet people at their houses. I don't recommend it to everybody else. But what can you do to find out the way they live if they're going to be the roommates? But I would look at a cosigner is how I'd get around the credit thing. When I use a cosigner, the cosigner's signature is notarized. Don't do the email it, have them sign it, anything back like that. No virtual signatures. Mark, howdy. Good to see you. No, it was good to see the live stream this morning. That was good stuff. People should check out the Financial Firefighters channel. Does a lot of live streams with a lot of guests. 24 Hills, man, what kind of dates are you going on? That's too early for an overshare. Expensive ones that end in divorce. Larry, howdy. $400,000 for a date? Crikey. Yeah, no, I wish it was only $400,000 for a date. So does my brother David. Oh, speaking of David, for anybody who knows me, this is an overshare I can handle. The doctors have determined that he is a relationship, and he had to be unplugged and plugged back in. The software update was not able to stick. They couldn't give him a new personality, but three times they got the heart turned off and turned back on to possibly fix AFib. I got to learn some medical terms this week, but he's doing good. So, so he will be in future videos to irritate me to his heart's content. My other version of what happened to my brother was he is the Grinch. They decided his heart was two sizes too small and some zaps made it bigger, but I think the first one worked. Gallows humor. This is how I deal with stress. Dividend Dave. Can't believe you left me after such a memorable meeting, Mark. JMF. I got a 33% loan to value because I bought distressed for sale by owners as a my first home. Nice. Yeah, no, I mean it's not bad. It's just I had to target a goal. I try to be diversified by having my properties at least 10 miles apart, close to several economic drivers, right? Different sources of tenants. As my portfolio grew, I bought one that was only 7 miles from one of my other properties. It mattered more in the beginning, right? There's different stages of the game. I wanted 70% loan to value. I currently want 50% loan to value. I'm not there. I wouldn't want too much. When I have too much, I'd actively be focusing on fixing it. When it's too low, it's kind of that region beta paradox, right? It's frustrating to the point where I'm probably going to fix it. I'm more likely to add debt to existing assets to get to my goal. Flavio, Dion, I know Port Orchard is a desired area. How did you find your duplex? I was investing in Pierce and Thurston counties, Washington. I'm very transparent. I have memory issues. So I just have to say, here's what I did. I was investing in Pierce and Thurston County in Washington. I will stay out of King County. There is no way in the world if somebody gave me a property, I would sell it immediately, and I probably owe the government money from how the laws work in King County. But it worked for a decade, and there's still deals there, but they're not as good as they were. With remote work triggering from 2020 more than any point in time in the last century, I thought, well, how far out will commuters go if they only have to go to the office once a week instead of 5 times a week? So I expanded out, found 11 different markets that I identified. Well, 11 total, because there was a couple Snohomish that I would invest in. Um, what's the other one? There's another county to the north of Seattle. So on the other side of King County, I would have invested. But I ended up narrowing down Port Orchard, Bremerton, Mason County, Shelton, outside where the commuters go. Commuters, remote workers that only have to go to the office once a week, pushed up rents, but haven't pushed up prices. They're starting to push up prices now. But in the first year, it was a window of opportunity. I found several deals that made sense. I made about 20 offers in the next, I took like a month to learn the market and then about a month of making probably at least 20 offers. I got two accepted. One was after several back and forths. I ended up going with that one that was all back and forth, and I'll never know if it was the right one out of the two. I backed out of the other one. The guy offered it to Frank, but because of property management, it didn't make sense to him. Would have made sense to me. Had a couple of other negatives about it, but no deal is perfect. Get to 80%, pull the trigger. So that's how I found these markets. And the other reason, think of the stage of the game you're in. Most people think house hacking is a way to start investing in real estate, right? Low money down, lower interest rate, reduce or eliminate your housing expense. Well, I looked at house hacking as how to make retirement better also. Like I used it to start, but I also looked at retirement. I live right on the water. I walk down to the ferry, and the ferry takes me to Bremerton or to Seattle. So I'm right on the Seattle waterfront, basically. But I'm 2 hours away from the craziness, hour and a half away from the craziness. By car, I'm right on the water. I have like a 260-degree full front water view. I sit out there, watch all the ships are basically like a picture that changes every day. Watch submarines come in and out. I watch there's a sailboat class here. There's a pirate ship that comes in the summer and does literally goes in front of my house and does a pirate display, puts the sails up because people pay for tours. So I'm literally walk down in scuba, walk down only when it's legal. If anybody's watching from the state, take a bucket and a rake and go grab a bunch of crab and cook them up. Like I wanted to live here, and there was a duplex. So when I'm in Portugal or I'm heading to Yellowstone or Scotland or Thailand or wherever I'm going for the rest of the year, there's a tenant living here. I'll know about a water leak. Somebody can grab a Amazon package if it's delivered. Like there's somebody present on the property. I don't have to worry about traveling. So that's why I ended up in Port Orchard. And then I fought the city for 10 months, and I'm half tempted not to live here. Mark, howdy from sunny Spokane area. Nice. It was sunny here today. I hope the people who have jobs have a summer that lands on a weekend in Western Washington. Colonel Channel, howdy. Coronel? There's no L. Coronel. Did you already do the live with the ADU guy or did I miss it? I did a course live with the ADU guy that will be uploaded to the course. That was a course call. Demiola, howdy. Thanks for the congratulations on BP. I appreciate it. It's really weird. I was a BP fan, watched from the beginning, like not I wasn't watching in the beginning, but when I found them, I went all the way back and I watched like every episode. Like one of the first episodes, I think it's like the third episode, the guy says, "Oh, I really appreciate you guys having me on Deeper Pockets." And Josh Dorkin goes like, "Oh, we can't have that. You used the wrong name." And they said, "No, no, no, leave it in." Like that's how far back I watched their videos. To going to being a guest in the 400s, like 448 was my first one. And then I've been a teaching assistant for their real estate rookie boot camps, to getting asked to come and speak at the convention. Interesting. Duplex Dave purchased a property last year with a 70% loan to value. Interest rate was 7%, but still cash flows 200 a month in a great area. Marginal deal that will improve over time. I would do that deal all day long, depending on the market you're in, and all the other aspects of the property. How's the parking? Is there washer dryer hookups? Are there pet friendly fenced yards? Like it's all through the criteria. So cash flow matters, return on investment matters, but they're not what makes me choose a deal or not. Joe, howdy. How would you restart if you had to do it over in 2025? That's a good way to put it. The question usually gets phrased, if you had to start, if you could go back and tell yourself something, right? If you tell your 18-year-old something, if you can go back and do something different, what would it be? It doesn't help anybody. It's if you had to start today, how would you do it? So if I'm starting today, zero net worth, zero job, zero assets, I am an investor, not an entrepreneur. I wouldn't go out and raise money. I wouldn't go out and find seller financing deals with no money down. I probably wouldn't use my VA loan. I would probably do what I did when I decided to get into real estate. That was find a job, get consistent income, work in that field for 2 years. So I went from law enforcement when I got laid off in 2008, uh, drove for a little bit in 2009. Oak Harbor Freight Lines went on strike, so that job went away. Got the job at the CDL school in 2010. Started working there, started working in a new field. Hadn't been a teacher before or an instructor before. Started saving, started working on credit score. So 2 years of that. So overtime, side hustle. I played World of Warcraft and sold things online. Saved up as much money as I could to get a down payment on my first place. Now, I don't know. What I bought would depend on what I found. I would probably try for a duplex or a house with an ADU. I had young kids when I did it, so I wasn't going to buy a house and rent out rooms. A house with an ADU or a duplex. So whichever one I found, that'd be what I bought. Then I'd continue to save, but I'd save faster now because I'd be house hacking. I'd be working in that job for over 2 years. So I'd probably get some promotions because I always show up early, work late, figure out how I can make the company more money. I've always been demoted down to leadership positions everywhere I've ever worked. Last company, I got demoted all the way down to president of the company. So I'd be making more money. I had figured out a new side hustle probably. We live in a time when it's the easiest time ever to start a side hustle. Uh, AI is changing it, making it easier. YouTube University exists. There's social media ways to make money, affiliate programs. So yeah, I'd work a lot. No dates, no vacations, drive old cars. Uh, so I'm 2 years in to buy the first place, 2 years in to buy the next one. I'd start to have some cash flow. I might look at another house hack after that now that I've done it before. And I know I just call a moving company and pay a few $100s. I go to work, all my stuff leaves the old house, is at the new house when I get home. Don't have your friends help you move. Don't get them pizza. We're not 25, all of us anymore. Hire a moving company. It'll be less than $300, and all your stuff is at the new house. Just Google two guys in a truck in your area. There's usually somebody that's doing it. Probably house hack again. Now, after 5 years, the income snowball would start to kick in. I'd have one property for 3 or 4 years with rent increases, chances to refinance, uh, chances to do value add, turn it down into a bedroom, uh, add a shed for storage to charge more, all these things that you can do to increase your income. Uh, 8, 9, and 10 years, depending on how many deals I found, I'd probably add a few more properties. And at about the 10-year mark, I'd be financially free again. It's a decade. It's not a 2 to 5 year, even if you're in a better position. I started with a bunch of bad debt I didn't know about until the divorce. I had three young kids, one income, wasn't making a lot of money as a CDL instructor. It took 10 years. I would plan a 10-year journey. That's how I'd start today. If you are starting today, if this is the first time to my channel, you were in the graduating class of 2035. Could it happen sooner? Maybe. If it takes you 10 years and you planned on 5, you will probably quit. If you plan on 10 and that income snowball kicks in sooner, you don't have the debt that I did, and it happens in 5 or 7 years, that's good. You're not going to quit. But that's a good question. That's how I would do it. Cash flow is freeing. Howdy. Good to see you. Curtis, Mel Dorman is fantastic. Saw her at the Northwest Action Summit. Yep, I've seen her there last time. I think I've seen her there twice. I've seen her present twice. Was that both times there? I think. Terry, howdy. From Atlanta, Georgia. Sounds like a real place. And then my chat moved, which is good. There we go. Tommy, hola. At your ADU talk, did you talk about pulling out sweat equity, especially owner occupied? I did not. He probably would talk about that if that question came up. I don't think it came up. I have never pulled out sweat equity. I have never pulled out equity. I have never added debt to an existing asset. Depends on what your goal is. If you want a bigger unit count, if you want more rentals, if you want a bigger portfolio, recycling capital will grow your portfolio faster. I like to recycle cash flow, which if you heard my start to financial freedom 10-year journey just now, I didn't talk about any HELOCs, no cash out refinance, no sale for 1031, save a down payment, buy a property, rinse, repeat, 10 years you're free. It's a very simple way of looking at it. It's very safe, very boring, very not sexy. When you pull out sweat equity, you reduce cash flow. I wanted the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. That doesn't come from recycling capital. See, howdy, SL. SI. What type of work do you reserve for everyday handyman, and what type of work do you assign to professional contractors? Inside the electric panel, or if it needs to pull an electric permit, electrician. I've got a handyman that's an electrician. That kind of helps. Same thing with a plumber. I've got a handyman that is a plumber, uh, but they're not always available. Plumbing, if it's going to be a pull a permit, if it's going to have to do anything with air venting, I'll generally hire a plumber. But if it's swap out a sink, you know, no. I've tiled bathtubs myself, bath shower, walk-in showers myself with Frank, who came up here and taught me how to do it. And then I went and did one for my brother. Uh, for most things, I'll go to Thumbtack and hire. You'll have people who are professionally licensed to do a certain thing. And then once you work with them, you ask them, what else do you like to do? What do you not like to do? Build a list of people you work with over and over and over, um, which is always going to be a constantly evolving list because most people who are handymen, not all, but most, are handymen because they can't have a regular job. They can't show up consistently at the right time. They can't stay sober for 6 months straight. They, whatever, can't stay out of prison, whatever it is their reason they're a handyman. And you hire them and you recommend them to your friends and you get them a bunch of work, and all of a sudden their life either spirals so far they can't do it, or they get their life together and they find a real job, or they become a contractor and they start hiring subs and then they become too expensive to use. Anything on the roof, licensed professional, where I go to the state website and make sure they have the insurance that covers above 8 feet from the ground. Uh, what else? Tree service for above 8 feet on trees. That's what my family did. Always feels weird to hire them. Actually, I'm going to be hiring one here pretty soon. I think that's about it. Yeah, case by case basis. But find out where you're comfortable and grow those relationships with handymen because that is how you get time freedom. In the beginning, most of us fall for it. I can go do things myself. I can paint a room, I can swap out a door, I can do whatever. But is that why you're investing? In the beginning, sure. Learn the scope of what does it take to swap out a door? Take a door to a place, have it made, put it back in, super easy. Replace a door and the jamb. There's a little bit of skill involved there and a lot of YouTube work. Uh, Figure out what you're comfortable with. Then just so you figure out the scope of the work, so that when you start getting estimates and get many estimates every time, you'll know when you're getting ripped off, usually. Luis, howdy. Is the course for financial freedom that you have for sale on your website up to date? I see that it says that it is updated for 2023. What is the difference from content on your videos? So it's not so much that the content in the videos, because I invest in what's called an evergreen strategy, right? So the Burr method made sense when prices were going up and interest rates were coming down. Flipping made sense in that same situation. So from 2012 to 2020, Flipping and Burr had a window of opportunity where even if you screwed up, you just wait a few months, prices would go up and interest rates would come down. It would fix your mistakes. You can get your ARV wrong, you can get your timeline wrong, you can get your costs wrong. That isn't the case now. What I teach would work if you bought a place in 2008, 2011, 2015, 2025. It doesn't matter. It's long term, buy and hold, where yield is a factor out of a list of things that gets it, but where the course value comes in, this is my belief. Tell me if I'm just stupid, arrogant, especially if you're in the course. Every other month. So not the month of June because we just did May. So June, there will be no course calls. There'll be members only calls here on YouTube. But in the course call every other month, so July, we're going to do weekly, jump on a Zoom, everybody in the course. We could do portfolio deep dives. We learn strategies. We have guests. This last time we had Cody Davis come. Uh, that ADU guy came. Justin Canberra's come. Christian from Multifamily Strategies has come. So we have guests come in an hour or so, live Zoom. That ADU guy, deep dives. We also talk about things I don't teach you on YouTube, like negotiation tactics involving NLP, mirroring, all the things that make you better at negotiating your deals. We do that every other month. Uh, what is not about the course is that right now, I haven't figured out how to put this on the website, but if somebody buys the course now, I'm doing the free one-on-one call, and then we do a free one-on-one follow-up about a month later because you need a month to process everything that we went through. So the course is evergreen. That's the how to get the best rates on a mortgage doesn't change. How to pick your market doesn't change. How to screen tenants doesn't change. Every other month, getting into these calls where we're in the course, we might go over something with rent control was instituted in Washington State. Here's how it impacts me. Here's how it impacts the binder strategy. Here how it does that. Um, that's what keeps it current. Cash flow is freeing. Howdy. Again, make sure to smash the like button so an angel gets its wings. Yes, remember, everybody, your favorite anti-theist says hit the like button every time you do, an angel gets its wings. Jason, I was going to do 90% of it already, and I already said have to check with my partner. Nice, good. So don't think you're missing anything. JMFS. Thanks for the info about teaching landlord legality. I'll follow up. Nice. Rick. Howdy. Matthew. Economic violence, but not the land the college housing is on. Nope. Or the money the college charges from the people who live in the area, or the union pensions or tenure or anything like that. Nope. Wayne Wong. That versus the idiocracy. That's probably accurate. Harsh reality to fire. Howdy. Thank you, Dion, for helping people like me. You have made me see this in a bigger way, retire so much more. Nice. Cool. That is why I'm here. Had a phone call. Um, I'll just call him a friend because if I give any more detail, people go, oh, I know who he's talking to. But I called today and we did a Zoom to try to solve some of his problems. And I said, look, I'll totally connect with one of your employees. I'll teach him how to do all these things and to help the business that he owns. And he goes, well, why would you do that? Here's my answer. Why would I not? Imagine how much the better the world is if you figure the more people who figure out, the more people you help, the better your life is. It always doesn't have to be, it doesn't always have to be transactional. You can just help people. Kind of like when somebody asks me about my course, one of the first things I say, can't believe it took me this long to get to it. Everything that's in my course as far as evergreen content goes is on YouTube. It's in this channel. It's just in a couple thousand videos. The course brings down to actionable steps. It's filtered down a lot. So I am not really trying to sell the course. I really did that so that when I'm on the Zoom with the people that are on the Zoom, I'm really only dealing with people taking action. People who have skin in the game. Andres, howdy. Where can I find more multifamily houses? I was looking on Zillow and don't see much available. That's a great way to ask the question. Thank you. Hopefully you're still here. If I didn't bore you to sleep, sorry for my voice. It's not better, not more entertaining. Uh, there's a ton of times where people ask the question framed a different little bit. They'll say, I can't find any multifamily houses. And I'll go, how are you looking? They'll say Zillow, Redfin, Realtor. I'll go, well, that's why. My deals didn't show up on Zillow and Redfin until I was closed. Like they were in my name and they showed up on those websites as pending. You're not going to see them. It is possible there aren't any in your area. There are markets where they just weren't built. Houses with ADUs, it might be your way to get around that. But until you have auto searches set up on the MLS with a pretty broad criteria, you have no idea how many multifamily are in your area. And people say, well, my Redfin and Zillow gets updated within 5 minutes. I call bull dookie because I live in an area where everybody says it's updated almost daily. And it was months later when my deals showed up. Auto searches from agents, driving for dollars. Yeah. Also, make sure in your searches you're not just looking for small multifamily. Include small multifamily, duplex, triplex, fourplex, house with ADU, house with DADU, JADU, accessory dwelling unit, auxiliary dwelling unit, granny flat, mother-in-law house, built out apartment. Like you have no idea what the listing agent is going to think it's called. Try to find everything. Okay, nice. Thank you. Wayne, what's your opinion if a rental property right next to railroad tracks? I tend to be put off by that aspect. So good question. It's in a category. So when I look at a rental property, I have a list of 100% of my wants. Okay. Quick rattled off. I'll probably miss a few. Side by side units, not over under. Washer dryer hookups inside each unit. A 10% or better cash on cash return because I can find sevens or eights in my market and I'm beating it. If I can only find fives or six, I'd try for a seven or an eight. Right? I want to beat the area average on cash return. I want it to be close to several economic drivers or different sources of tenants. I want it to be a certain distance from my other properties. I don't want it to be in a flood zone. I don't want it to be uh, a short sale, a foreclosure, or in an HOA. Like I've got my not wants and my not wants. When I do the members only, Wayne, which you're a member, so you should see this. So thank you for the question. You should see this when we do this. What's the first thing we do? We we don't do the math first. Right? It's 45 minutes to learn this skill. That's going to take you 2 to 3 minutes to actually do. We do the math close to the end because it takes so much time. Why start with that? We start with identify what it is, left to right, top to bottom, like we're reading an advertisement. What am I looking at? How many days on the market? Where is it located? You know your market, you know the areas you would avoid. Then we go to the map. We haven't even looked at the pictures yet of the place because that could take time for loading the screens. We don't want to waste time. Go to the map, zoom it out, turn it into satellite view. So you can look around and look for water treatment plants, mushroom factories, railroad tracks, airports, businesses that could be a club with loud music. And then we determine, okay, how far is it from there? Will it impact my parking? Will it impact the noise for the place? Yeah, I'm not a fan of having it within like 2 blocks, probably, because it's not so much that the track rattles right on your property. It's that the train is just that close. Then do some research. Are those active tracks? Are they actually used? You might have to find a different way of figuring that out in your area. And then I go back into okay, now let's look at the property. Are there the washer dryer hookups? What does the parking look like? Maybe run the math and then, go through the whole list. So I would buy a property on the railroad tracks where the train rattled the building. If the return was good, if it had parking, if it had washer dryer hookups, pet-friendly fenced yard, right next to several economic drivers, right? So every single one of these is just one criteria out of probably 15 or 20. I've purchased, not hypothetical, I've purchased three break-even deals. One of them actually probably lost money when you run the math. I have to do the math on that. After the binder strategy, it became a okay deal. After turning the dens into bedrooms, it became the phenomenal deal. When the mushroom factory goes away, that one became a good deal. When the construction was done on the two overpass dual roundabout thing that cleared up all the traffic, that one became a good deal. I'm looking at all of the things that I want. I want the yield to be where I want it as much as I want the parking to be right. For a couple of years, the wealth building journey, Chester, was looking for places in DC to do rent by the room. He found some deals where the yield would be 30 or 40%. The parking for one or two cars. Yield doesn't matter if it doesn't match the rest of your strategy. So I don't want it by railroad tracks, but I would totally buy one if it checked off enough of the other boxes. That was a great question. Thanks, Wayne. Duplex Dave, Dion, what do you think will happen to inventory levels as we lose 30 million or so boomers over the next 10 to 15 years? Do you think most markets will be able to absorb this supply with current population growth? Yes, because we will not always have a Republican in charge, and we will open our borders up again. And we will have another 15 million people come in. We will have legal immigration. We will have, uh, so buying a property 10 years from now when rents are repressed is going to be harder if rents come down because the population goes down or whatever, right? So in your scenario, let's say rents go down. But buying a property today and owning it for 10 years, having inflation, rent increases, uh, principal pay down, opportunity to refinance to different rates, like all these things that happen in those 10 years. And then let's say rents soften. Do you care? Let's say right now, rents went down 50%. I bought a place in 2021. Let me see, $1,700 payment, $4,000 in income, rent go down 50%. So I'd be basically break even. I'd have the mortgage covered. I'd be setting aside a couple $100 a month for the future repairs, right? And that would suck. Let's go back to work talk, right? But the place I bought in 2013, where the payment's $1,300 a month, and it's rented out for, 20, 4,800, 4,750, basically. Uh, Rents go down. I'm still making over $1,000 a month on that property. It's a 50% decrease. I'm still making money on that because I've owned it for over a decade. Yeah. When those things happen in the future, yeah, it's going to be more challenging. It will always be challenging to buy, and we'll have to find a different way to do it. But owning a property for 10 years, rents have never gone down market wide. But let's say they did, you would still be positive cash flow. Uh, oh, they're not on my computer yet. I'm making a video Thursday on 3 specific calls for housing crashes since 2020 that didn't happen. And I did the data. I've got the charts, right? The Crash Bros like to show their fancy charts. I made fancy charts. I'm going to prove these are the calls that were made, when they were made, the expectations that were called to happen, and how they didn't happen. But that's a good question too. Population growth is kind of a factor. I think population migration is a bigger factor. As more and more remote work happens, I think more rural places are going to go up in value. What caliber is your bathroom gun? It is a Protector Poly 357 Magnum. I generally don't take. This is the office gun. That's the 44 Magnum that I inherited from my 97-pound mother. Uh, I call it the office gun. But the Protector Poly, which I haven't had for very long because before that it was the like the P926 or whatever. Sig Sauer. I like Sig Sauer. They're okay. Not my favorite. Glock are just not concealable enough, even their subcompacts. Back to real estate. Thank you, Matthew. DMFS. Try St. Elmo's if you ever take a $400 date to Indianapolis. Nice. Jason, thanks. Thank you. Northwest Desert Rats. Hi, Dion in chat. ADU is rented out. Now I'm saving for the next down payment. Congratulations. Awesome. Chester, thanks for joining us. Here I am talking about you. And my chat moved. I appreciate every time the chat moves. That means there's more comments. Freedom Works. Just finished the novel All Fours by Miranda July. Cool real estate twist in it. A house hack no one has ever thought about. I'd have to check it out. I found a grid. Marianne Hefty. Okay. We'll check it out. Nice. You found D? Northwest Desert Rats. Have you done a video on DSCR financing? I think I've done a few because I was really close to closing a deal with a DSCR loan through Convoy Home Loans. Uh, Part of my book I'm writing is on lending. So DSCR, the drawbacks. Most times, this is a trick. Most times, not all times, most times the interest rate's higher. Not all times. There's two times I've seen since 2020 where DSCR rates were lower than conventional rates. They generally want a higher down payment, 20, 25, 30%. Generally, you can find them where they'll take less. While your work history and your debt to income aren't as factored, your credit score is, your net worth is, and how the property performs is. So they definitely have uses. You, I want to say can't. You are not legally supposed to house hack a DSCR loan, so it removes one of the best benefits. There are benefits to it. And like I said, doesn't look at your work history, doesn't look at your debt to income ratio. But there are also some negatives for it too. Harsh reality to fire. At what point does the bank's part is too low for them to be helpful with asset protection? Basically not worth it for them anymore. Good question. I think as long as you owe money to them, I don't think that there's a minimum. It's still, I mean, because it's not, I don't see judges going, how much equity do you have? They will go, are there liens against this property? Mortgage in first position is a lien against property. And it's just one of the forms. Thanks. I think I got what you meant with the question. You found a triplex with one vacancy. Can somebody check on Marion and make sure you're not having a stroke? Because your questions are coming in all jumbled. Manny, howdy. Good to see you here. JMC, howdy. Man, I found a triplex with one vacancy. How can I see if it is a good deal? So I don't know if I recognize the name. I think I've seen it, but I don't know the way my memory works. I could have seen it tonight, or I could have seen it for the last 3 years straight. What makes a good deal for you? It's not the math, right? What would the return be? Cash on cash return, that is part of it. Is it in a safe neighborhood? If you're thinking of house hacking, would you live there? Is there enough parking for 3 units? Are all 3 units legal? Or was this something Frankenstein together on a house where the permits weren't done and you're going to buy somebody else's nightmare? Do you have the reserves, the down payment, the lending history that the banks are going to want if you're going to buy this? Uh, Credit score, work history, debt to income ratio, like all the things that makes it happen. Like there's a whole chronology to buying a property, and it starts with years before you buy the property or find the property. You start working on your credit score, your debt to income ratio, your savings rate, get the down payment, closing costs, immediate repair money, and the reserves that the bank's going to want. Now you look at the properties. Do you know your market well enough to know if it's on a street you would want to own on? It's street by street in almost every market. I invest in Pierce and Thurston County, Washington. Now I'm in Kitsap and looking in Mason. It's still street by street. So it's like people go, well, in Gary, Indiana, it's really rough. Yeah, well, in Tacoma, Compton, Washington, it's the same. Lakewood, it's the same. In Tumwater, Washington, there's 301 T Street. You don't want to own within a half a mile all the way around there. Cops don't go there alone. Know your market well enough to do that. To learn the math, which is the part everybody focuses on, and I'm trying to break the internet and twist it to where it's not the only thing they look at. We don't practice the math till we get it right. You practice it till you can't get it wrong, and then it becomes one on a list of reasons why to buy or not buy a property. What is the area average rent based on how many bedrooms those have? You can find that on HUD for what Section 8 will pay. You can look up basic allowance for housing for what the military will pay in the area. You look on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor, what's for rent, how much do they charge, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. Do a comparison over a few weeks to see what the average rent is actually in that area. Now that you know the rents, you can do the math and go, okay, how much are they looking to buy? How much am I putting down? What is my yield, which is cash on cash return on investment? And this is a lot of information, so you're going to want to look up videos on YouTube University going, how do you run the numbers? I've got videos on it too, but it's annual profit divided by cost to acquire. So you take out your mortgage, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. You set aside money for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. You pay anything else, like if you have an HOA, which I wouldn't buy in. But after that, what's left? Times 12 to get your annual, divided by your cost to acquire, which is the down payment, closing costs, and money for immediate repairs. That gives you a number. The idea is you study your market long enough to know what most of the good deals look like. 80% of the deals are probably going to lose money. That's why they're on the market. But about 20%, give or take, you wouldn't lose money. What do they mostly make? Right. And in my area, for a long time, I was able to find seven and eight. So I hunted for tens. For a while, it dropped to five or six. So I was looking for eights. Then I expanded my market, found my tens again. So you want to study the area average. This is right out of the book, One Rental for a Time by Michael Zuber, who has a great YouTube channel and does daily financial news updates at 7:30 in the morning, 5 days a week. Uh, there's my plug for my friend. But learn the area average, find deals that beat it. Does this triplex beat it if all units were rented? I'm not worried about what it's going to make now or what the rents are at now. Current rents mean nothing to me. Unless they have long leases, that might factor it in. But what is the area average rent? It's a little bit below that. What kind of yield does that give you? So learning real estate is not I wish it was. It's not watch a 2 hour live stream and now you know how to do real estate. It's hopefully you're taking notes because I'm an instructor at heart. As I found it out late in life. I love to instruct. Most students, which is all of us on YouTube University, can retain three facts. Right now, if I said three numbers, and then asked you what those numbers were, you'd probably be able to repeat them back to me. If I give you four, you don't lose the fourth one, you lose all four. That's basically how our brains work. There's a lot more than three facts coming out during this live stream. So if you're taking notes, you know, what's that DSCR thing that other guy asked about? You know, how do I know if it's a good deal? Why does he talk about economic drivers? Now you know what to go look up on YouTube University. And you're in the right thing. You're in a room, virtual, with a bunch of people trying to do the same thing. Where's the local meetups in your area? Are you watching BiggerPockets? Are you watching One Rental at a Time? The Lumberjack Landlord, Millennial Mike, like all these different strategies until you find one that matches what you want to do. And then follow that person as much as possible. Hope that helps. That was my goal. Brian, howdy. Coronel channel, I think. Words are hard. Need your advice. I have a long-term rental with a 4% rate. Cash flows 250 a month, but I want to make it a short-term rental, but would need around 35,000 to renovate it. Should I pull a HELOC on it and pay it off? and pay the HELOC off from the rents. I'm not a fan of pulling money out, but you're doing a different strategy. How confident are you in your ability to make a short-term rental work? Do you have your cleaning crew in place? Are you going to manage it yourself? Do you know how to advertise short-term rental, which is very different than long-term rental? Do you understand the amount of work that's involved with short-term rental compared to long-term rental? Are you aware of any legislation in your area that could change? Washington just instituted something like a 6% tax on short-term rentals, popped up out of nowhere. Uh, Municipalities and billion-dollar hotel chains are fighting against short-term rentals in almost every market. So legislation could change at any time. Once you spend the 35,000, how does it look as a long-term rental? Uh, my brother was and then it comes down to your income. My brother had spiky, sometimes bigger income. So he used a home equity line of credit and paid it off before, usually before buying the next property, not always, but he would use the HELOC again and pay it off. Are you confident in your ability to pay off the home equity line of credit before the interest rate changes? And what does that home equity line of credit do to your cash flow if the short-term rental strategy doesn't work? Those are the questions I would be asking myself. Kind of like my video that's coming out Saturday. That's how my memory works. I have 15 questions you should ask yourself before you buy a rental or before you buy your next rental. That's coming out Saturday. So if you've noticed a trend here, like when a question comes up like this, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I buy a house? Should I sell a house? Should I use this strategy? I never say, and it's not never. The less a man makes declarative statements, the less apt he is to look foolish in retrospect. Thank you, Tarantino. Uh, I try to never say yes or no. What I try to do is take you down the logic chain I would use to make the decision. Should I sell my house? Here's what I would think all the way through the questions. It's not yes or no based on the deal. It's if you want to do this, can you pay off the HELOC? Can your short-term rental work? Are you set up to do it? Are you confident in your ability to do it? Like the questions to ask yourself before you make a decision is how I come to almost every decision. Deconstructing dreams, a financial journey. Howdy from Reno, Nevada, catching up on chipmunk speed. Nice. I have been messing with the squirrels around my house for a few days. Uh, yes, I've named them. I feed them squirrel safe stuff. I watch them fight the crows. Sean, howdy. I'm introducing my wife to long-term rentals. Can you share a review of all the variables we should account for in calculating a deal? No, I'll do my best, but I can't hit all of them. So this is not a comprehensive list. To do that, I would need a 15-minute video that would take me at least a week to prepare for. So maybe that's in the future. It's a good question. I should probably take a screenshot or a picture. No, I can take a screenshot over here. Uh, Variables to look at as a rental. First, start with yourself. What's your savings rate? What's your credit score? What's your work history? Can you save the down payments? Can you become bankable? Do you have the risk tolerance to have a mortgage or do you want to buy all cash? Are you a Dave Ramsey fan? Robert Kiyosaki fan? Look at both of them, watch some of their stuff. I don't know either of them, although I've listened to and read a lot of their stuff, or Audible listened to, read their stuff. So that's first your variables of you. Then do the continued review of yourself. Do you think you have the personality to manage tenants? Do you think you have the personality to manage a property manager? I have a long list of reasons why I don't use a property manager, a lot of negatives. The pro is if you have the no backbone, your tenants will walk all over you and you'll be too worried about raising rents or too worried about charging late fees, or like Jason, they asked for a whole bunch of things for me to replace and I'm not sure what to do. That's how it should be. It should be, I'm not sure what way to go. I need some help here. If you're like, yep, I'm just going to fix everything they asked for, you should not be a landlord. Jason had the right question. So if you don't have the backbone and you wear your heart on your sleeve, or like my friend Adam, in all honesty, biggest dick on the world, shouldn't be a landlord or live around humans. If I'm ever taken out due to questionable circumstances, it's Adam. Uh, yeah, gallows humor. Back to it. So he shouldn't own rentals because he couldn't manage the property manager or the tenants. And if you know, but I like to self-manage. I learned some people skills. So I invest locally. If you're going to invest at a distance, I recommend a property manager. Millennial Mike invests at a distance. He works in law enforcement near Seattle and invests in Gary, Indiana. So like, a lot of good content on the Millennial Mike channel here on YouTube. So now you've looked at yourself and you figure out, okay, what market are you going to invest in? Is it where you live? Is it at a distance? What asset type are you looking for? Are you and your spouse willing to house hack? Buy a house with an ADU, a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, get a very low down payment, best interest rate, live there for a year, move out, rent it out. Probably not if you're just now talking your spouse into it. So you're probably going to have to save a down payment to look at a deal. So that's 20 or 25%. Sometimes you can get less than 20%, but on your first deal, I would recommend saving that much because if you can't save up 20%, uh, you're not going to all of a sudden magically know how to run money when you start making money off a rental. There are some better deals with lower down payments than 20%. House hacking is a way to do that. Sometimes DSCR conventional loans on a rental will be done 10%. You have to talk with lenders all the time. So you've done that. Now you want to look at the rental. You want to look at everything about the market. Is the area that I want to invest in safe? Is it in a flood zone? Is it in an earthquake zone? Is it right under Mount Rainier? Is it, all of these things? What kind of insurance am I going to need? Flood zone is not a deal killer. Calculating flood insurance can make or break a deal. Is it in a safe neighborhood? Do the cops go there alone? Can you call your non-emergency police number and ask them if you're buying a house there? Is it safe to live there? Can you call property managers in your area and say, hey, I'm thinking of buying rentals in this area on this street. Would you manage that? Let them tell you if they would or not, because they know if they can send their handyman or not, or if they can go collect rent or not. Learn your market. Now you look at the property to know if you should buy it. Most people focus on math, but I'm going to think, I don't want to do a lot of work. I'm an investor, not an entrepreneur. Frank has five property managers because he has no backbone. And Cynthia would be the one that's too mean, right? Uh, that's a joke, Cynthia. Don't hurt me. Um, Squirrel ran off with the emperor's groove. So you're looking at the property to match your strategy. You said long-term rentals. I don't want a lot of tenant turnover, right? When I started investing, I was working full time. I was raising three kids. I was a single parent. Like I needed this to be, I want to buy things that don't add a lot to my workload. Buying properties, learning how to buy properties, making offers, making deals, negotiating. This is a lot of work. Owning a property had to be a very little work. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to own more, right? And I wanted to own enough to be financially free. So I targeted properties that help limit tenant turnover. So a single family house has the longest tenancy. It's usually about 7 years, nationwide average for tenancy in a single family house, 7 years. Apartments, it's 2 years. So if I buy a fourplex that looks like an apartment, big box up and down units, I would expect tenant turnover to be closer to apartment style of every couple of years. I bought a fourplex that's for townhome styles. So no tenant is living above or below another. Each unit had its own garage. There are washer dryer hookups in there. It had a lot of my boxes checked. I have very little tenant turnover there. So I prefer, I would love to buy single family. I think there's a question that comes up later. Would I be tempted to buy single family if the numbers made sense? If the numbers make sense, absolutely. I buy what has the best yield and checks off the most boxes. One of those boxes is I want it to be similar to a single family house. Guess what is similar to a single family house? Single family houses. Pet friendly fenced yards, parking, washer dryer hookups, no tenants above or below the others, like all of these things. That helps lower tenant turnover. So when you buy the property, you're not dealing with a new tenant every 12 months. Right? My first 10 years, I probably, if I take out the first one, because I was a nightmare, didn't know what I was doing yet. I think I had five tenant turnovers that first decade. And then I had five tenant turnovers in my 11th year. Like I made up for all the good times. People bought a house, military person got orders. There was another one. Woman moved in with boyfriend. It was just a bunch of turnovers all at once, which is good for cash flow, but would have been rough in the beginning when I was starting out. Didn't have five when I was starting out, so it hopefully wouldn't happen. Uh, so what will help limit tenant turnover in your market? Then you have to study your market. I wanted to buy single family houses, but they don't cash flow in Washington State. Maybe someday they will. Maybe I still have auto searches set up for single family houses because that's how you find a house with an ADU. Uh, since they don't cash flow, I then started looking at duplexes, triplexes, and fourplex house asking a duplex, moved into one side, rented out the other, purchased the place. Um, well, purchase it before you move in. It's an order of operations there. So now you know the market you're in, the asset type that you want, and now you want to look at, okay, street by street, is this a good area to know? So you want to learn your market, drive up and down the roads, find out all the good and bad areas to avoid or to target. I specifically do not want to own in a good school district. Good school district, like you'll hear everybody else on YouTube University say, you want to buy in a good school district because it's catchy. That's what agents put in the listings. Good school district means two things. First, it's a good school district because they have enough tax revenue, which means your taxes are higher. Second, you're aging out your tenants based on the age their kid is when they go to school. It's basically like tipping your government because their kid got an A in algebra. No thanks. What it meets your criteria. Maybe you want to only rent to families. I'll rent to families. I don't discriminate. I just target properties that won't draw in families because I don't like kids. Kids damage everything. They age out of properties. They get divorced, and then there's kids custody battles, and they have to move out of the district for whatever. There's all kinds of reasons why I don't want families, but I'll rent to them. Uh, so you go through the list of what makes it a good or bad. What will help tenants stay? You have an inspection done when you're making offers because you might find there's too much work to do, but you don't know about it till you get in there. So you have all these things. Then there's an appraisal contingency, which is designed to protect the lender, but also can get you out of a deal if it doesn't appraise high enough. So there's all these checks and balances in place. You learn to run the math. This is what everybody's going to focus on. It's one criteria out of 15 to 20 criteria. You want to learn what a cash on cash return on investment is. This is annual profit divided by cost to acquire. Cost to acquire is down payment, closing costs, immediate repairs. Annual profit is you pay your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. You set aside money for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, any other expense that you have. Take it out what's left, times 12 gets you an annual profit. That was at 1 hour and 16 minutes in the video if you want that equation again. 1 hour and 16 minutes into the video. You learn how to run cash on cash return in your market. What do most deals do? The deal you're looking at, is it better than that? When you're starting out, something to do is get to know the investors in your area and maybe ask them, is it possible for me to run the numbers on the rentals you already own to see how close I come? They'll point out something that you're missing, like flood insurance is required here, or uh, this one is in an HOA, or something that you don't know to look for in the beginning, but they'll point out. Once the math is good, then it's you got to make offers. And just because you know what their list price is doesn't mean that's what it's going to go for. So you have to know what is your hard cap on how high you would go. Because even if you find something on the market, my last purchase was on the market 147 days. I made my offer. And guess what? Stupid, retarded email I got back the next day. We have a couple of other offers. Can you give us your best and final? Do you think three offers came in on the 147th day? Or is that just realtor talk for, hey, can we get some more money out of you? What is your hard stop on what you would do? And just quick notice, the last one was listed at 500,000. I offered four. They counted at 477. I offered four. They counted at 444 because they like these solid numbers. I offered four. They came back at 422 and I offered four. And then I backed out of the deal because my other one got accepted. And then they reached out to me and said, guess what? We'll take four, which made it a great deal. So I bought it. Know your numbers and stick to them. Then how do you know if it's a good deal? So the yield is right. It's in a safe street. It has the elements that match your strategy that will either help limit tenant turnover or attract short-term tenants, whatever your strategy is. Uh, it is a mountain of information. I have a course at diontalk.com that covers, and there's videos on YouTube. If you look up the 6 steps to getting started in real estate, that's there. Learn those because there's steps you can do long before you buy a rental. I do not cover how to get your spouse on board. Matt, the lumberjack landlord, and Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time can do that better because I've been really good at keeping custody of kids and keeping my houses through divorces. This is never been good at keeping a girl around. I'm the problem. I'm aware. I look like this. Although I look a lot better now standing on my wallet because a lot of the times the problem was we didn't have money. Jason, not earning a gold course is so worth it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Biblically accurate angels, though. Nice. JMS. True. Exactly. JMC. Dion, hopefully, Sean, I hope that answered your question. It was a ton of information because it's a lot of information to learn. One of the mistakes I made when I started out was I moved into an apartment and rented my house out. I was the problem, like in all my marriages. I was uneducated. I rented to a friend because who can trust a stranger? I didn't use a lease because who wants a contract between you and your friend? He was a single parent, so when rent got late, I understood, and late became never. When I finally went to the house and said, let's have a face-to-face conversation, why aren't you paying your rent? He didn't live there. He had moved out and rented the house to someone else and was keeping the rent. Like all of that happened because I didn't educate myself. You're here, you've started the education process. There is a lot to that. It's one of the questions you should ask yourself before you buy a rental. Are you willing to go through the time to educate yourself? So good job being here. JMC. Do you also have one of the highest appreciated and rent increased markets? I believe Seattle, Washington is highly sought after place to live. Other markets can't be compared to yours, right? So buying here has been more challenging because it appreciated more than other markets. That statement can be said either way. Rents have appreciated, sure, but so did prices. So did the blue state laws of overregulation. Rent control got instituted June 1st of this year. So I agree with you, but I don't agree that there's any market you can't invest in. Someone is investing there successfully. It may not be a strategy that you like, but something's working everywhere. I targeted a blue state on purpose. I targeted a high cost of living area on purpose because my goal is not a big unit count. Millennial Mike wanted to invest in Gary because he's a millennial and he needs those dopamine hits of closing on a deal every couple of months or rehabbing or refinancing or doing whatever. I wanted to buy a property every couple of years and have financial freedom in a decade. The right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units happens in a higher cost of living area. What matches your strategy? Curtis. And then my chat moved, but it was on Curtis. Olympia may get rid of the ability to refuse a tenant due to credit score. I saw that. So Olympia City is the King County of the South. It will eventually spread to the state, so you will need other metrics, and we will find other metrics as we go. Jason C, that's a nice wind chime. This is a gift from Frank, the old guy REI. Came up here and hung out with me, and he realized it's accurate. Jason, yours is the only course where it's never over because we get the awesome course calls and the area small group. That is very accurate. We all get to know each other. We all know what's going on, and we all get to talk about um, excuse. How do we put it? Experience is that thing that lets you recognize your mistakes when you're making them again. Like with relationships, I'm a Taurus. I charge every red flag. Rich. Are there any small jobs you have the tenants do, such as replacing a light bulb, or do you have your handyman do everything? I have made fun of a tenant who called me to replace a light bulb in the beginning. Since then, every rental I have gets uh, these type of LED lights or a version of that. Just straight up LED lights. Now everybody's going, were those blinking lights in the background? Yes, it's connected to AI. And I could say, where's it go? AI. Device is offline. Why is it offline? Huh, lights are on. That's weird. Okay. So I make sure there are no light bulbs to swap out. I want so less electricity used for the tenants. That's a bonus. But I want no tenants doing things that are dangerous, like standing on something to swap out a light bulb. So I put LED lights in anytime that there's a turnover or I purchase a property. Uh, Trying to think of what jobs have I had tenants do. I had a tenant who was a handyman. So I'd hire him for things, not on his unit. I'd hire people to do work at his unit. Other words, you're going to find my cabinet broke is loose because he needs 150 bucks next month. I'm trying to think if I ever had the tenants do anything else. Nope, not really. One of the strategies that I use to be able to travel is I use the Thumbtack app to hire contractors, handymen, plumbers, electricians, whatever job that is related to it. Once I hire them for something off the app, I'll communicate with them and ask them, hey, what's your scope? What areas do you like to work in? I've got rentals in these many areas. Um, I've got one that loves to do flooring. He just hates carpet, so he'll do most of my LVP install. I've got another plumber that's a handyman, right? And so I build this list of people. In the beginning, I had the mindset of most investors, and I would say, uh, let me save some money. Let me go do this myself. But then I realized maybe you save it, but you're creating work for yourself. It's not good if you're lazy. But now the handyman knows they're only getting called for the crap jobs. I need you to go in the crawl space with all the spiders and replace the dryer vent. But I'll go and, reattach the dishwasher because the screw came out of the counter, whatever. No, the simple small jobs, I'll run by my handyman and go, hey, the faucet in the back needs to be swapped out because it's not shutting off all the way. You want to go replace that, or would you like me to do it myself? Most times, if they're swamped, they're like, yeah, I can either get to it next week or you can go do it. But a lot of times they like money and then they're just swapping out a faucet and let's turn off the water, pull out the faucet, put in the new one. 20-minute job, they'll make $100 or $200. I tip 50 bucks every time on a minimum for the small jobs. Bigger job, bigger tip. That handyman at 11 o'clock at night answers the text from the tenant in the group chat when the tenant has an issue because I've built a relationship. And this is the thing that helped Sean get his wife on board. I'm not the one handling the call at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I've had one past 8 p.m. ever anyway, but I didn't have to handle it. I went to a handyman who couldn't resolve the issue. So then I sent an email to a plumbing company who did go resolve the issue. Uh, yeah, hire them for the simple, easy stuff. They're more likely to do the hard stuff. And let them know I could go swap out the faucet. I can literally drive right by there. I'd rather you made some money. Are you looking for work? Like phrase it exactly how their brain is going to work. JMC, I thought a mix of house hack plus burr works if you're careful and your 1 to 2 house hacks help fund the burr. Yeah. So the thing where the burr works, right? It's a chip. So people who've been doing the burr strategy for the last decade when the prices were going up and the rates were coming down will do burrs today and be totally fine. They have their contractors in order, they have their relationship with the municipality, they have the lenders in line, they have their reserves. Who cares? They're going to recognize a good deal, right? But when you're starting out, even in the good conditions, do you know how long the after repair value uh, appraisal is going to take to get in? Do you know how long the repair is going to take? What the actual cost is? What the permit process is like? There's so many ways to mess up the burp strategy when you're starting out that even in that window of opportunity where it was a good time to do it, I never did one. I recommended nobody do it. Once Millennial Mike had over 7 units, he did a couple of burrs. Interest rates tripled during them and he still survived. It's not a starting strategy. It's often referred to as a starting strategy because people think, I want to own rentals, but I don't have any money. I hear the burr strategy will let me do this without any money. I'll get cash flow without any money in the deal. It sounds so sexy. And then they mess up their odds of refinancing. What if the rehab takes just a little bit too long to where your hard money triggers their increased rate on the last few payments? What if your job situation changes and you can't refinance? Like all of these risks in the beginning that will not just, cost you money, add some time to your investing journey. It'll stop you in your tracks and make bankruptcy an option. So, yes, I'm a really big fan of Mindy Jensen from the BiggerPockets Money Show. She does what's called live in flip. She'll move into a property. It looks like a war zone. She lives there for at least 2 years, makes hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit, sells it, buys the next one, reinvests the money. She either buys property or invests in stocks. Her and her husband are both technically retired early. Um, she still works a lot for BiggerPockets, but I think because she enjoys it. But the live in bird, sure, it's a great thing. I just don't think people should start with the bird. Jason, ain't nobody got time for all that. Did I miss something from Jason? So everyone spelled my last name all throughout school. Yep. Yours is the only course. Jason must have missed something. Rick, Rich, howdy. Are there any? Okay, that's where I did that already. That's how my brain works. Globe guy, howdy. I'm a bit behind, so howdy to y'all in Futureland. The weather's nice here. Mikey, agreed. The course calls are invaluable, always picking up something new as investors share what they're doing. Thank you. Chris Webb, howdy. From Central, you throw me off with that Central Virginia all the time. There's like a West Virginia and a Virginia, and you got to be Central Virginia. And it always reminds me of when I did furniture delivery. I had a company for a while where my ex emptied the tax account and wages account and I had to shut it down. It's always a pleasant memory. But I'm in Virginia and we're going to an address. And I had this assistant with me. We called him the Vulture because he was the navigator. And we circled every stop 3 times before we parked on it because he would get us lost. But he looked up the address in West Virginia instead of Virginia because it was the same address. And we went about 3.5 hours out of our way. Well, 2 hours probably with traffic. Joshua, I know you just answered a question about railroad tracks being close to your potential investment property. Would a property being close to a major highway be a deal killer? Uh, Depends on the sound suppression wall if that exists. I want it close to major highways for commutability. A specific one, if it was, very dangerous where the yard was right at the road and there was no fences or anything. Trying to think, do I own any like that? I own some on some kind of big roads, like Highway 7, but they're not right on the road. Yeah, I would consider it. It could be uh, that it's close can make me more likely to buy it. That it's too close, if it's unsafe, could make me not want to buy it. Jason, say hello to Dion's little friend. Nice. I have a P90 here too. That's a little friendish. Matthew, do any of your properties have wind or solar? No. Would you put it on your primary duplex? No. I live in Washington, where there is no R, and there's also very little sunlight. The carbon footprint that is generated by making solar panels is often never recovered or recouped by the amount of energy the solar panels create. No, don't fall for the Green New Deal. Wind is the same. I was a windmill technician when I got out of the Marines. It's before or after I was homeless. I think it was after I was homeless. But I became a windmill technician in the Tehachapi Mountains, worked for Sea West, which I don't think they're around anymore. Every one of them that went in, the amount of cement and metal and everything. There's a show that just came out with Angelina Jolie's ex-husband. I can't think of his name. And I wonder why I can remember hers. Landman. And he really broke down. Same thing with the wind turbines. They will never displace the amount of energy it took to create them. Their 20-year lifespans don't even come close. So no. JMC, can you talk about income? Low income investors, if it's even possible. What is low income in your area? In Washington State, the average income required to own a house here is $117,000 a year in income. Most of my life, I never made more than 60. And it wasn't until my last 2 years at my CDL school that I started making decent money because my rentals were making so much they had to try to keep me with more income. I was making $17 an hour when I started saving for the first duplex, and that was in 2010. So it wasn't like 1990. Uh, I think it's almost easier to reach financial freedom on a low income than a high income because high income people become Henrys, right? High earners, no, not rich yet. Life creep happens. Half the people making more than $150,000 a year in the US live paycheck to paycheck. Big house, big car, nice vacations. They've earned it. They work hard. They can be broke. They're going to work until they die. But at $17 an hour and taking any vacations, I drove a 17 and a 19-year-old Jeep and Jeep Cherokee. No dates, no nothing for 8 years, basically, from 2010 to 2018. Same old vehicles, no vacations. Uh, that sacrifice and reaching financial freedom, no, financial independence, when the cash flow was more than I was making at my job, took 8 years. I worked for four more. I loved my job at the end at the CDL school there. Uh, and ended up becoming what I would consider wealthy. I've never in my life thought uh, I will have over $20,000 a month that I have to figure out how to spend without going to work for it. That's like a third of a year's income every month from when I was working for money. It's definitely possible on a low income. I think you have to think of geo arbitrage, right? I didn't live in Olympia or in Tacoma. I lived near them in Yelm, Washington, like what the Apache called the boondocks. Had a bit of a commute. When I first bought there, there was a blinking red light. There were no traffic lights. It was 45 minutes to the closest store, over an hour to the closest movie theater. Now that city has a Walmart, a Safeway, a movie theater, bowling alley. Almost had a Home Depot. I think that fell through. Uh, yeah, get out to where the properties are still affordable because they are. Housing is more affordable now than it was in the year 2000. It's just not affordable where people want to live. People want a walkability score, T1 internet connection. That's not where the cash flow is. Andres, at least it's not if you have a low income. Would you be tempted to buy single family houses if their prices keep going down and down? That's one factor. What's going on with interest rates and rents? Because it's cash on cash return. I prefer single family houses. I've never seen one that makes sense in my market. I do have a friend. Shelly sold her Washington stuff, did a reverse 1031 into Ohio, messed up her timeline, ended up paying taxes. I keep trying to get her to come on and make a video, but like she's in witness protection like Jason. Uh, she bought single family houses. That market she invested in Ohio, they made sense there. So it's not like they don't make sense. It's they don't make sense where I live. Desiree, do you always house hack? So I've house hacked 3 times. The first one closed in 2013. I lived there till 2020. In 2020, I bought my fourplex and I moved from the duplex to the fourplex. At any point in time, I could have moved out of the house hack and rented it out, but I was comfortable there. It was close commute to work. Fourplex actually increased my commute to work a little. Got paid to live there. I lived there from 2020 to 2023, and then I moved into this duplex, which is a Burr house hack, but it's where I want to live. It's right on the water. I can walk down and catch crab or scuba dive, or get on the ferry, go eat in the Seattle waterfront. Like, I don't need a forever home. I want to travel and see the world. At some point, I might buy a forever home. I might buy a place that's not a house hack. But how many people like Michael Zuber and Olivia from One Rental at a Time owned a townhome in Silicon Valley? That means they had neighbors. Owning a house hack is no different than having neighbors, except I get to screen the neighbors. I don't know if I'll ever stop. There's a section of my book that I'm actually writing, I believe this week. It's a section that covers how I feel like my tenants are richer than I am. And it's a little bit embarrassing because I go into my childhood when uh, looking back, I don't know if we were squatters or not. My parents always said we weren't because whenever the owners of the house would find us, we would just move. We would move into a house, fix the doors and windows, and live there until they found out we were there. Their opinion was squatters trashed a place and squatters made an owner go through an eviction. So we didn't pay rent or a mortgage my whole childhood, basically, until I think my mom got something when I was like 15, but I didn't live with her then. And so I bought places. I was house hacking. I was living in one side. Now I moved to the fourplex. I was getting paid to live there. But my tenants are so rich in my mind that they can afford to pay rent. And like the memory is, I remember being like 7 and going to a friend's house. Now we were living for free. We had just moved about a year before this because the owner found us in Haskell Canyon, Saugus, California, LA County, and said, "Hey, I really like that you guys are living here. That keeps the place safe. How about you guys pay $50 a month?" This is when rent was probably $700 or $800 a month. And my dad said, "Nope, we don't pay rent." And we left. So new school district, new place, fixed up a desert shack out in Rosamond, California. the armpit of the Mojave Desert. And same thing, living in a house. I went to a friend's house when I was like 7, and their parents were talking about the rent. I thought, how in the world did I meet a friend whose family is so rich they can afford to pay rent? And they were talking about the amount, and they did this every month. Like, that's nuts. And I have tenants that go to work every day to pay their rent. I get paid to live where I'm at. I live for free. Get paid to live where I'm at. That's addicting. Imagine if you didn't have a housing cost. Here's a quick breakdown. I should whiteboard something like this. Let's say housing in an area costs $2,000 a month, and I'm living for free. So if somebody looks at their income and my income, before we look at what we're making, I already have a $24,000 a year after taxes jump ahead on them. What would that do to you? Is your mortgage or your rent 2,000 or more? What if it was gone? How much do you have to work? How much do you have to earn to get $24,000? Yeah, it's a graduated tax bracket, but where you're at in the tax bracket, 12%, 24%, whatever it is, you probably have to earn 28, $29,000 to save what you would by house hacking. It's crazy. Everyone is welcome to Tacoma FI. We've had people come up. Jared came up from like Portland. Everyone is welcome. So if you're in the Facebook group, they should come. Is that today? I'll have to look up. I'll have to text Tony and find out when it is. And then my chat moved. Howdy, Stephen. Good to see you. JMC, what would be your clear indicators to not invest in a certain market? Uh, Not safe enough to go there to collect the rent or send a handyman without fearing for their safety. Places where cops don't go alone. Um, Not checking off enough boxes. So if it doesn't have a fenced yard, doesn't have washer dryer hookup, doesn't, if it's an up-down unit, I like all of these boxes together. I want enough of them checked in the direction that I want. Cash flow is a factor as important as all of the other ones to me. Like I said, I've bought 3 break-even deals, but the rest of the stuff was good enough to make them make sense. Clear indicators to not invest in a certain market. Inside King County, inside Tacoma City, inside city limits, I think is going to be a determiner for me. If it has an HOA, don't want it. If it's a short sale or foreclosure, I'm not making offers because I don't want to tie up funds for months. It's not like 2011 or 2010 when there were millions of foreclosures going on and banks were trying to offload their stuff. So you can get an answer for a short sale in less than 45 days. It's 18 months now sometimes to get an answer of what they think they'll take. So I have criteria on what I won't waste my time on. Yep. JMC, if someone's market house prices are out of reach, would you save for down payment and house hack even if it takes longer or invest out of state or burr out of state? Here we go, JMC. Ready to take a mental note? The more expensive the market you live in, the more important house hacking is. If you live in Gary, Indiana, and house hacking can save you $1,000 a month, that's nice. If you live in San Francisco and house hacking can save you $3,000 a month, that's kind of nicer. Nicerist. The nicering continues. And I am disappointment in my grammar. I think investing out of state to me would have came down to me not finding a deal in a year and being ready. And the market you invest in has to have this one element. Like so many people will say, well, you go to the U-Haul website and you see where their trucks are going, so you can see migration trends. You look up the economic drivers to see if there's enough businesses in there to employ your tenants. You look at flood zone, you look at crime data, you look at all this stuff. No, the only factor that matters to me, I would invest in a bad market over a good market if I had this metric in the bad market. Trusted boots on the ground. So Millennial Mike works in law enforcement, lives in Washington, where there is no R. Are a bunch of Democrats. He invests in Gary, Indiana. Not because he picked that market because it meant anything to him, not because it was an upcoming trend. Nothing meant as much when he started investing there. The pandemic hadn't even happened yet. The remote work from Chicago that is pushing up that area wasn't even on the horizon. What happened is his friend Mark Matsky from Matsky Finance, a YouTube channel, who now I think lives in Panama, had rentals there. Mike watched Mark for a couple of years to see if he landed on his face or if it was going okay. Mark had systems in place. So if I was going to invest at a distance, I was going to go to my friend Millennial Mike, jump on his coattails and invest in the market. He's got the systems in place. He would be my trusted boots on the ground, the systems in place. So it isn't so much that I choose Burr, local or out of state. It's where are my trusted boots on the ground? Caprigoon. Looking forward to those 15 on Saturday. Cool. Nice. Me too. Flavio, you have to charge for lives, too much information. Thank you. I do. I'm costing you your time. That's why I really hope every question I answer gets you closer to financial freedom. Your time is the only resource you can't renew. Jason to Frank, no backbone, 5 p.m.'s nice. What's it make? Nice name. A quality orientation with new tenants will set the standard. The second month backup is the standards. Nice. Yeah, setting tenant expectations is massively important. Olenka. So I buy a over under in 2022, but now I want to buy more, but I'm a little overwhelmed. I have a full-time job, 12 hours, 5 days a week, and my time arisen 20 years. Time horizon is 20 years and 8,000 in cash flow. 20 years is great time horizon. 8,000 is very achievable. It does seem like a lot in the beginning. I think I would your up down unit, have you dealt with anything like a plumbing issue that affects both tenants, or have you had tenant turnover? That could be a thing that like subconsciously tells you don't buy more, it's more work. It's one of the reasons why I like to target those places that are like single family houses, because the less tenant turnover you have, the more likely you are to want to add more units. Love your timeline. That's great. So many people go, I want 20,000 a month in 8 years. Is it doable? Yeah. Is it gonna stress you out and make you probably quit way before then? Might, maybe. I love the way you have your numbers set up there. Old guy REI CMO. What did you say about your mom? That she's a scary woman. And very nice if you're on her good side. Rowan. Hi, Dion. I just made an offer on a duplex in my hometown of Lebanon, Oregon. Nice. Is it going to be house act? Because I have a question for you. Have been trying to buy for around 5 years. Looks like the market is finally starting to turn. Good, cool. And rents are good. The duplex has a 10 by 20 storage units. Also, what type of rental agreement would you use for them? I would definitely research the rental agreement for storage units. It's different than a lease for where someone's living, and the rules are different. But the thing to think about is I have a friend who invested in Bend, Oregon, and he bought a duplex, and he used a binder strategy. I use the binder strategy still in Washington with rent control because the target isn't always to just get the rent increase the most you can. It's to have happy tenants at the end of the conversation. So that's the point for me. But if you house hack a duplex, if you're living in one side, in Oregon, rent control does not apply to that property. So you need to know your local laws and figure out, does the laws that you're worried about impact you or not? And for storage, it's pretty cool. We're in a good community of investors. What I don't really have is someone who invests in storage to say, if you want to invest at a distance, here's Millennial Mike. If you want to scale and do owner financed and very creative strategies, here's Cody Davis. If you want to get to know all the different ways of the millionaires that reached financial freedom, even if you don't want to invest in real estate, one rental at a time, has people come in from stocks and crypto and all these different places. I don't have somebody to say, here's who somebody I know who's good with storage. So I'd actually have to do some research on what is the best lease to do for that. Ray T, howdy. Glad I made it home in time to catch my first live. Nice. Welcome to the club. We have cookies, just like the dark side. John, I love your tips again on smoker damage. My father's tenant just left and they were there since Katrina. Sent you an email. Nice. Cool. I will have to check it out. Freedom Works. Do you have a CCP? Is that why you carry everywhere? I do have a concealed weapons permit. I live in an open carry state. They have the vague. This was sucked when I was a cop. We have the vaguest open carry law ever. It's completely legal to carry a firearm visible in Washington state, unless someone is uncomfortable. All right, you're an officer on the scene. Interpret that for me. Yeah, no, everyone should have a concealed weapon permit. If you don't carry a firearm, you are part of the problem. The reason why, so Washington State law enforcement trivia for you. Washington State, California, same amount of crime per capita, right? More population in California, more things happen, but per capita, same amount of crime. California, ATM robbery, home invasion, carjacking. In Washington, same amount of crime. Burglary when you're not home. Vehicle prowl, not carjacking. A lot less victim crimes because in California, it took my brother, who hasn't been on my channel yet, about 5 years to get his concealed carry permit. In Washington, it's $60. And basically, you sign a thing saying, I don't plan on doing anything bad. And you have a permit. So almost everyone here that I know, I want to say 80% of the people I know, carry. So you don't have victim crimes as much. Okay, back to real estate. Off my soapbox. No, nobody's right or left. I hate both sides. I have one sentence. I can piss off both sides with one sentence. Rowan, how much of my cash reserves should I use as I might want to keep shopping? I kept a minimum reserves. Reserves are not used for investing. Everything above reserves goes into the investing fund. So my reserves scaled with my portfolio. When I had 7 or less units, I kept about 10 grand. Inflation would probably make that 15, maybe even 20 now. When I got above 7 units, I figured more things can go wrong at the same time. So I raised it to $30,000. That was my reserves. Everything above that got invested. It's not per property or size of, percentage of gross value or anything. It's just 10,000, then 30. Nice round numbers while I was working. Once I stopped working, and like I always say, lost that drug that kills our dreams, the paycheck, I increased it to 50,000. At 18 units or 100 units, I would keep $50,000 in reserves. Everything above that would be going to work to make me more money. Brian, I've been thinking about buying small apartment buildings. My agent found me a 17 unit and suddenly it started to seem overwhelming. Have any thoughts about moving from 2 to 4 units? I have 3 words that will determine more than almost anything as far as me buying a property. These 3 words. This is what would determine it. Can anybody guess what they are? When my portfolio was really small, I wouldn't want 10 unit apartment complexes. Because what if there's an infestation? What if the economic drivers close to it, because all your tenants live in one area, go away? Boeing goes away. The port goes on strike. The base has a BRAC meeting and closes. Whatever happens, right? So I wanted duplexes that were spread out. Once my portfolio got bigger, I started looking for bigger properties. So here's the 3 words that would make me determine, would I buy the 17 unit? So is your portfolio large enough to where all of your tenants being in one area isn't going to tank you if something happens to that area? What if your foundation has an issue and everybody has to move out? Things that can happen, right? So I wouldn't want it to be my first, second, or third building, but fourth, fifth, sixth, sure, I might take that. I will only buy properties because of what we all learned in 2008. If I can get fixed rate debt. Tacoma FI is tomorrow. Nice. I did not know that. I will have to try to figure out if I can make it tomorrow. I think I can. All of a sudden, I'm Tommy the train. I think I can. All right. So on the 17 unit, there are some DSCR loans that I would look at. I would contact Convoy Home Loans. They had a limit of 8 or 10 units. They would do 30-year fixed rate debt on. So maybe they've gone up, maybe they won't. But Velocity Mortgage, I don't think it's Home Mortgage, Velocity Mortgage that comes on Michael Zuber's One Rental at a Time channel. Don't know why he doesn't come on mine. Maybe he doesn't like me. I met him at the event in Vegas. Uh, Stephan Dow from Velocity Mortgage, I believe, contact him to find out. They'll do up to $30 million fixed rate debt for the right commercial buildings. You might still have a loan reevaluation period. That would be a deal killer for me. You might, too many, I don't want net operating income loans. I want fire and forget mortgages where the only time I refinance is if I sell the property, if rates drop enough for me to benefit from a refinance. I don't want uh, any adjustable rate mortgages. So if you can find a way to do it with fixed rate debt and it's not your first or second property, maybe. I think sometimes the own properties, so I have scaled the properties. There's been appreciation, principal pay down. If I sold everything and have like three something million dollars, right? Take that and buy a couple of bigger multi-unit places with no loan. It's an option too. Not my chosen strategy. Rowan, the duplex has, okay, that's it. Kevin, howdy. Hello from Maine. Nice. Did you see there's a couple of Stephen King shows coming out here soon? We've got The Long Walk, which he actually wrote under the pseudonym Richard Bachman in the Bachman Tales, and Welcome to Derry is coming out. So that's what I know about Maine and why I moved to Washington. I got out of the Marines, right? I was living in the desert, and I was like, I'm gonna join the Marines and get out of the desert. They put me in 29 Palms, Saudi, Kuwait, Iraq, Bosnia, everywhere where there's dirt. So I get out of the Marines, and I'm like, all right, I want to move where it rains. I look at the country, and it rains in Maine, and it rains in Washington, and I was like, yeah, but Stephen King lives there, and all that stuff happens. So I moved to Washington. Charles, I knew so little about the East Coast that it was 2 years ago when I had my first ever lobster roll because I flew back to hang out with Matt, the lumberjack landlord near Boston. And we went to Polly's, the one that's been on all the shows, and had a lobster roll. Didn't know that was a thing. Charles, thank you. I used the binder strategy on the kids. They chose to move out of the rental and move back in with us and work on replacing roof on that rental. Nice. Good job. That's awesome. I have binder strategied my kid too. I was very disappointed. She did not negotiate very well. I thought I did a better job than that. So we learned negotiation for her in that skill. Oh, can you think you did it wrong? Well, getting him out of the rental right back in with you, it depends on your family. Thanks, Cracked Canvas. Thank you. JMC. I've been trying to break into IT after 300 plus applications. Might pivot and get a CDLB license. I found a school offering it for $300 training. There is a video on my channel called Why Your Resume Is Not Working. Try that, then retry applying for the IT jobs. See what happens. Freedom Works. On the can you invest on low income? Nothing is good or bad. There is only thinking. Low income means you get serious about money. Agreed. Za, ZA, his king. Za is king. I have two rental properties right now, and I don't use a property manager company. I am wanting to expand with more rentals, but I am a bit scared. That's a valid concern. I think, especially when you have your first couple, if you don't have your systems in place and more rentals will make you think more work, a property manager seems like the solution some people want. So a way I look at it is start. So first of all, today I give you permission to be a landlord. There's so many people who have one or two rentals and they think, well, I only have one or two. I'm not a real landlord. So I don't need leases and I don't need a list of handyman and I don't need big reserves and I don't have to know the laws. No, the day you have a rental, I give you permission to be a landlord. When you start hunting for your rental, you are a landlord. It will take you more time and add more stress to have a property manager. Are they charging more rent from the tenants than you know about and keeping the difference? We have somebody in the chat usually where that just happened to her and she had to fire a property manager. Are you okay with a property manager making more on your properties than you do? Are you okay with a property manager having the motivation to have tenant turnover because that's how they make money? If you treat your properties like you have 100 and you treat your tenants like you only have one, what systems would you put in place? I treat my tenants like I only have one. They have my cell phone number. They can text, but we've had a conversation. Here's the only three words that would allow you to call me, and it's okay if I'm your second call, but only call me if the conversation is going to include one of these three words. If it doesn't, we can text. And if a text doesn't work, we'll move to email because emails are admissible in court. I don't tell them that part. That's what I just tell them, that if it's important, we'll move it to email. If the tenant's going to say the words in the conversation, fire, flood, or blood, it's okay to call me after 911. That reduces your amount of calls. They might laugh, they might look at you funny, but now they know calling is not how you communicate. Texting is. Do you have a list of 24-hour a day, 7-day a week electricians and plumbers on call? Right? Plumber, I want 24/7. Electrician, I want 7 days a week. Doesn't have to be 24 hours, doesn't have to go out at night usually. Unless you live in a really cold area, I guess. Do you have a strong lease? Do you hold your tenants to the lease? Have you learned your local laws to know what you can and can't do? Have you retained an attorney? Just go take $1,000 or $1,500, find an eviction attorney in your area and retain them. You don't retain them for an eviction. You retain the attorney for legal guidance so that if you ever do have an eviction, you can actually call them and say, I need you to write up the paperwork for a 14-day pay or quit or 21-day, whatever your local law is. They'll take a little bit of money out of your retainer and they'll give you that paperwork. A lot of times, if you call and you say, I have an eviction to go through, they'll go, cool, that's $4,500 or $3,500 because they want you to pay for the eviction. You just want a retainer of an attorney for legal guidance. And then if you start an eviction, you can do it with the paperwork because 7 or 8 times out of 10, serving the eviction gets the tenant out. If it goes to eviction, now you actually have to hire the attorney. Do those things in advance to get rid of the stress. Do you have a list of handymen that you've hired off a thumbtack for small jobs? Because you don't have to do it all yourself. If you're the one going and swapping out a doorknob, you're not going to want 5 units or 10 units. But if you had 100 properties, wouldn't you have 3 or 4 handymen that you can call to make sure one of them's available? Kind of know their pricing structure, get several bids on things. Have a Lowe's Pro account, get a Lowe's credit card. I don't use this for credit card stuff. It doesn't even go in my wallet. It just sits here because if you use your Lowe's Pro credit card for big purchases at Lowe's or the Home Depot card at Home Depot, deliveries are $20. The gas to go pick up stuff at your take it to your rental will cost you more than $20. You can have it delivered by using that credit card, then paying it off immediately. Do you have landlord policies in place with your utilities? So if a tenant moves out, the electricity automatically goes into your name, and a handyman or you has power if you go to the unit to do anything. That's how you scale. That's how you grow. You put the systems in place like you had 100 properties because you won't be doing everything. When you have two and you think, okay, this is how I would run it if I had 100, are you going to care when you get to 10 or 15? Your systems are designed for more. And if you only had one tenant and they know they can reach out to you directly and they know that they're a priority, you're probably going to keep them longer. Longer tenancy means less tenant turnover. Less turnover means less work. You've got this. I have faith in you. Still active duty too. So, depending on how many times you have to move due to your job, property management might be a thing. Developing relationships with other investors in the area where you're buying could also help. Brian, I got into real estate investing because ex-wives are expensive. Current wives are expensive. Current husbands are expensive. Momo gets money. Howdy. I'm trying to close my first multifamily deal right now. Nice. Congratulations. Freedom Works, I'm going firearms training later this month. Nice. It is a perishable skill. Make sure you work on it often. Never find yourself in a situation where you wish you had it. It's so much better to be in situations where you had it and didn't need it. Oh, and no, not a house hack on the duplex. Yep. So you might be subject to rent control. Figure out how that will work for you and your numbers. And then Cabergoon, Cabulous took back a message to make me lose sleep and wonder forever and ever what was messaged. B2R, better, investing and financial talk. Howdy. Just joined Dion, missed the start. We'll listen to it from the beginning later. Nice. Cool. Thank you. JR. So if anybody's new to my channel, that's how this channel works. Is on Thursdays and Saturdays, I do a shorter 10 to 15-minute live for those people who would never click on a 2-hour video. Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I do this live stream where I answer questions, usually for an hour or two. Every other month we have course calls, so we usually wrap it up before now. Uh, I do members only calls at least twice a month where we literally learn the skill to look at deals. We all jump on Zoom together. We have 45 minutes. About 5 minutes, that will be the math, and it's closer to the end than you think. But we look at all the things that makes a deal a good deal or a bad deal to learn the skill. Uh, but on the live streams, the first 10 minutes to 20 minutes, the goal is 10, it's a topic that gives everybody who shows up time to get their questions in the chat while I go over the topic at the intro. Sometimes I record it like I did today, and I might release it as a separate video on its own in a while. JR, how many follow-up emails for contract before you move on to the next handyman if you liked them during the walkthrough? Also, do you have insurance minimums on COI when picking a vendor? So the only insurance minimums I look at is to make sure they're registered with the state as above 8 feet work if they're doing anything on the roof. That's the only one I really care about. Uh, Follow-up emails, if they don't communicate, I'm on to the next one. That's why Thumbtack is so good. Thoughts on COI? I'd have to know what the acronym means versus being added as an additional intern. I haven't been added as an additional intern with any of the vendors. Nope. So yeah, I care about when they're on the roof. I have property insurance. I have an umbrella policy, so I'm covered there as far as insurance goes on the properties. Northwest Desert Rats, Tacoma FIs tomorrow. I'll have to figure out where. Rowan, Dion, have you used any of these online mortgage brokers? I have gone through Fairway Mortgage. I don't know if you'd consider them online because they have physical offices. And I've gone through Wells Fargo. I've gotten quotes from several different brokers. So I haven't gone to strictly an online only. I'm Gen X. We don't trust the interwebs yet. I think this statement is very accurate. Rowan says, I've noticed with my 13 years of landlording, karma is real. So very true. Ninja Vanish, howdy, good to see you. Freedom Works, you're super accurate about having an attorney on retainer. Thank you. What does the crown next to your name mean? I don't know. It keeps showing up with different numbers. Northwest Desert Rats. It means you're doing a good job keeping things active. Nice. Okay, well, cool then. Cool, nice. Momo gets money. Why is this not showing me? There we go. I'm using my VA loan, so I'm trying to get into quadplex to take advantage of 0% down instead of just a duplex. Seems more efficient. Use the VA loan on biggest size property I can get. It does. When I first started, hopefully you get it, and I encourage you to do that. When I started, I wanted the duplex because I figured with my job, if the other tenant wasn't paying, I was covering a mortgage like I was living in a house. The fourplex, it's about twice as much mortgage, but twice as many tenants would have to stop paying. So I probably should have went for the fourplex earlier than I did. But I always so in 2021, Momo gets money. I started having what I consider a massive amount of money in the bank. Like I was usually making $17, $18 an hour as a cop, as a truck driver. Cop, I was like $21 an hour, but it wasn't a lot. So I not 5 or 10 grand life savings might be a huge thing. But in 2021, it started getting to 200,000, 250,000, 300,000. And I started saying in videos at the end of 2021, I started saying, that was in 2021. My goal is I have $250,000 in the bank, numbers I never thought would happen. I want to buy a fourplex. I want to put 25% down on a fourplex. So I want it to be at least $1 million. And then I ended up saving. And in 2021, I found a duplex that was a great deal. So I bought it. And in 2023, I found a couple of duplexes that were a great deal. So I made offers. Ended up getting one of them. So for 4 years, I've wanted a fourplex that cost at least $1 million. I might use my VA loan. Who knows? I might let the money pile up and do a down payment. But what I want is part of the criteria of what I buy. Like I want it to be side by side units. I want it to have fenced yards. I want it to have washer dryer hookups. I want it to have a good cash on cash return. I want it to have all these things. I want it to be a fourplex, but I'm going to buy the next great deal that I find. So even though you're looking for a fourplex, I recommend look for houses with ADUs, duplex, triplex, fourplex, what has the best cash on cash return, what ends up being a good deal, and buy the first one you find. Oh, old guy, all right. Thank you, McNeeley. Thank you, Contreras. Star in Investnist. Star Investist. Words are hard. I'm 19, HVAC technician living in the Midwest looking for duplexes to house hack. What do you think about a duplex with a tenant already in it? I prefer to buy tenants in place. You might, if you're owner occupying, have to kick somebody out, so be ready for that. But I prefer tenants in place. A lot of landlords, a lot of investors want to buy an empty place so they can rehab it and get market rents. I want to buy a place where the tenants are low on rent. Previous owner's probably old and tired and wasn't taking care of a place, and that's why they're selling it. So you get it for the right price, but you have to deal with that existing tenant. That's where the binder strategy comes from. So if you're new to the channel, the binder strategy, just look it up here on YouTube. It is how I get my tenants to ask me to raise the rent, and then they're happy when I agree to it. Happy tenants don't trash your property. Happy tenants don't leave. So yeah, I'm absolutely on board with buying a place that has uh, tenants in place. You could be buying an eviction. Make sure you have the reserves and you're ready for the challenge that comes with not everybody is a nice person. So different for everybody. Certificate of insurance. Thanks, JR. Cool. I probably should have pieced that together. I've never looked for them, never cared about them. Uh, but I'm not a rehab guy, right? I'm doing like build a closet for me, or what have I done? Put the flooring in. If I was like reframing and re-putting in a joist or whatever, yeah, I might look into that then. Capricorn Cabulus, do you write off the retainer against your portfolio when it's used? Not the retainer, but when they get the bill for this is what they took off the retainer, that receipt goes to expenses because you have the rentals. That makes sense? More water for those words. Exactly. Rowan, I've noticed the online mortgage brokers are all over me. Is this a sign the interest rates might be falling in the future or just that they are hungry? So lending fears change all the time and they get directives to, because their job is to give out money at all times, even when lenders pull back. They want to find the most qualified, their criteria gets stricter. But yeah, who knows who's running their marketing towards you and how you got on their radar? What list did they buy that your name was on? Almost gets many agreed on that, Dion. I'm checking everything. If the numbers work, they work regardless of size or number of units. I'm certainly house hacking my single family by renting to travel nurses by the room. Nice. Yeah. So it's good. So hopefully you find the fourplex. I wish you all the luck in the world. I would like to find one myself. It's probably going to be the thing I buy before the end of the year. We'll see. I don't really set outcome goals like that. I'll set action goals. So right now, I'm actively trying to not look at deals because I haven't been in growth mode or stabilization mode. I'm in travel and goof off mode. When I come back from Yellowstone and maybe Scotland, August, September-ish, I might dive in and set action goals. If I'm going to look at deals 30 minutes to an hour every day, I'm going to study these markets. I'm going to interact with this agent or these agents. Those are my action goals with the goal, the outcome goal of finding the next great deal. So an outcome goal is I want to buy a fourplex by the end of the year. That might make me buy a bad deal close to the end of the year. So that's not what I do. I go, here's my action goals. I want to look for deals. I want to interact with agents. I want to have my searches set up. And I want to do this consistently every day with the idea of buying the next great deal. So the idea is the outcome goal, but the action goals are the things I can control. Freedom Works. Question for Dion. What was the name of the place where Lumberjack Landlord is debating? Raging Tomato. Thank you for that. The Raging Tomato, because we'll probably be wrapping this up here pretty soon. I know every time I say that, the unit count or the viewer count goes down, and I feel all alone. The Raging Tomato, this Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, he is debating capitalism versus the idiocracy. Or there's probably a nicer way they're putting it. I will be in the chat. I will not be in the video. I do not need toxic. I'm going to use some language that you might not like. So close it down if you don't like languages. I don't need to spend time with retards to understand that there are dumb people in the world. If you think socialism or communism is the way, this is not the channel for you. I'll be straight up. It's just not. This is the place where people go because they want to put their money to work so they don't have to. When is the next members only? That is a good question. It is probably not tomorrow because that's now the Tacoma FI. So let me know in the chat what works better for everybody, Friday night or Saturday night this week. I was 7th Marines, 0352. Well, 1st Marine Division, 3rd Tank Battalion. I was attached to them, but I was 7th there for a minute. Yeah. So I was 29 Palms. And 0352. Yep. That's why I have the ringing in my ears and the dark gallows humor. Imagine being an introvert. 29 Palms. I was at Fort Irwin. Yeah, we went to Fort Irwin a lot. That's fun training. I have here from Fort Irwin. I have something from Fort Irwin. Got my first office hours in Fort Irwin. Did you know, overshare at the end of the video, uh, that in the Marines, your weapon is supposed to be clean all the time? Sounds like that makes sense, right? Apparently, at Fort Irwin, when you're in the field, but you're by the PX on the base, you're not supposed to clean the weapon on the hood of your vehicle. To a Marine, it seems totally normal. To some Army colonel, it didn't seem entertaining to him. First office hours. Saturday works best. Okay. Saturday works for you. Okay, so Saturday it is. First people that spoke up, Saturday. Yep. Yeah, so the overshares. Sorry, I missed Zuber's thing on Sunday. I wanted to be there for the 2 hour. We're doing it this coming Sunday. 2 hours, the Three Amigos. This last weekend, I have a friend whose mom's going into hospice. So I was signing the I will take care of things while he travels stuff. And I was at the hospital most of this weekend with my brother getting his factory reset done. Shut him down 3 times. Unplugged him and plugged him back in. And they got his AFib figured out. So seems like he's doing good. More energy than he had. So now we'll be off to travel to the next place. Still alive, but now it's almost over. I'll have to try harder next time. Thanks for all you do. Thank you for showing up. Hey Ham, hey Harm. Is that like an alligator? No, it's a flag. Okay, screen looked weird. Hey Harm, nice. We'll hang out for a minute just in case you have a question. So Saturday, members only. Jason or somebody who has my phone, can you text me Saturday morning and remind me? Please, I'm not saying giving you permission, I'm asking you. Chester, remind me or I'll forget. Saturday works. Kilo 37. Station at 41. Nice. Did a month at Irwin and then went to 29 Palms for additional training after. I think my commander was just trying to skip Alaska winters. Yeah, the winters in 29 Palms, they can get cold too, though. Too many military guys in here trying to catch up on life. There you go. I try as much as possible to stay away from the military stuff because, first of all, I haven't used my VA loan. So it's not like here's the advantage I had that got me into rentals. Everyone can do this, no matter what your background is, except for my friend Adam. Lieutenant colonels are usually battalion commanders, and full bird colonels are usually regimental commanders. It depends. I mean, Army or Marines. David's doing much better. Thanks, Rich. Yeah, he is. He'll be good. Uh, like I said, they were unable to do the software update and give him a new personality, but they got the heart going right. Dion, for the Gen per you are miles ahead of me in this technology as I'm a Gen Xer also. What kind of wine are you chugging? I'm a beer drinker. I am not a beer drinker, and I am definitely not a wine drinker. I am a vodka and Mountain Dew guy. Uh, but I do a few things too because my parents have passed. With my dad, I wear my Stetson. So I grew up riding horses. I never wore a cowboy hat. I always picked on him for it. Then he passed away, so I got one, and now I wear it. From my mom, she drank Port Gallo. I got a lot of grape juice as a kid because my mom would pour her grape juice into some container for me and then put her wine, her Port Gallo wine, into her container and take it to work for her with her. They were raging alcoholics. Uh, so every Tuesday, mostly every Tuesday, I drink wine to think of her. So Port Gallo, disgusting. Ugh. That's why there's a water chaser. What time is the live? Saturday afternoon, say 5 p.m. Pacific or 4 p.m. Pacific, whatever works for everybody. I'll probably put it up in the morning. People can put in the chat what works better, 4 or 5. My name is Harm, and hey is the Armenian word for Armenian. Nice. Cool. That is not a culture I am too familiar with. I will have to do some research. That's cool. Chester, I didn't know there were differences. I should know there's a difference. I guess Army has regular comms, and I know both have back comms. Yeah, there's some weird differences with leadership in the militaries. How do you become a member? Quee Parker, there are some uh, devices that don't have a join button. So usually you have to either get off your Android or your iPhone. I don't know which one's the one that has the problem, but you have to get onto a laptop or a computer, a PC, go to the YouTube website, go to my thing, and there's a join button. You join, I put a little cost barrier there. I'm not trying to make money off of it. It's like $2.99 a month, $2.99 a month. And what I recommend, if that money matters to you, sign up for 1 month. You get to go to the two that we're probably going to do the month that you join, right? But you have access to all of the ones before because there's a member only playlist. So you can watch as many as you want to learn the skill. And every time it's basically the same. Somebody presents a deal or I bring in a deal. I prefer that somebody brings theirs because I'm not in buying mode right now and I don't want to look at my market. So you bring the deal, we open it up. I know nothing about your market. So I go through all of the steps. How would I determine, what it is? What on the map would matter? I open the map up. What are we looking for around it? What can we tell that would have a loud sound, a loud smell, or make it unsafe? How would we figure out the crime stats without going to a crime stat website? Because that's almost all made up. Uh, Calculating the math, looking at all the physical aspects of what is strategy are you trying to use? Does this property match that strategy? We'd go through all of that. It takes about 45 minutes, and you're learning the skill that we'll do in 3 minutes once you're actually doing it. Um, and if the 299 is all you can handle, that's fine. Do it for 1 month. Watch as many as you can. Learn the skill. Some of us hang out because we all get on Zoom together. I don't just do it like this. We put it in the chat. You can watch on YouTube because there's a members only video going. But I put the Zoom link in the chat. We all jump on Zoom. All questions are fair game. But it's usually how do you learn the skill of mastering? Is this a good deal or not? And I really stress in that 45-minute conversation, the math part is only about 5 minutes of it. I hear a lot of hate with Florida real estate investing. What's your opinion on it? Also, I've asked you this in the past. Do climate change? What's your take? Oh, great. Let's piss off half of the people because remember, the country's right down the middle. So with Florida, the thing to consider is flood insurance. There's a lot of ways to figure out if you need it or not. And if you need it, I've seen it be as little as $1,000 a year and as much as $8,000 a year. That can change the numbers on your deal significantly. So you have to understand the age of the building, elevation of the foundation, whether it's in a sea salt flooded zone or not, like all these things that you've got to know about that. You have to know your local market. Just like in Washington, I have to know my local market. There's streets I won't invest on, there's streets I will. Uh, can factor in flood insurance there. Taxes in Washington are like Texas, they reset every year. So we have to consider that here too. Uh, I think it's every other year that they actually review them, but the law is they can adjust every year. Uh, I'm not so much worried about population trends. If your numbers are so tight, some people moving away or some people moving to town can impact your numbers. I think you're looking at deals too narrow, too thin, too small a margin. Uh, so I would invest in Florida. I went and I spent a couple of months in Cape Coral by Fort Myers, helped my friend buy two single family houses and a duplex that he then sold a year later and now is buying in Tennessee. Um, so there's good properties, there's deals everywhere. You have to learn the market. Thoughts on climate change? I think it's called climate change. It has nothing to do with humans. I think the arrogance that comes from thinking we have any impact on the planet is retarded. So I'm not there. Which brings me to the other sentence. Because again, we're torn as a country, half and half. So here's my sentence that pisses off both sides. This is overshare time at the end of the video. It's your fault for being here. There are only two genders, and there are exactly zero gods. So there's my sentence that can piss off both sides. Rowan, well, everybody needs a hobby. By the way, the cowboy hat looks good on you. Thank you. We'll be praying for your brother. Thank you. I heard you correctly. Yeah, he's doing good. Uh, Chester, Kevin Gallagher, gotcha. Ironically, I would have thought a brigadier general was in charge of a brigade. Be my little general, brigadier, major, lieutenant general. Kevin Gallagher was in charge of a brigade, but since that makes so much sense, the military probably won't do it. And okay, Friday night, we had too many Saturdays come in first. So maybe the next one we'll do on a Friday. Chester, don't get me started on why one-star admiral isn't called a commodore, why commanders who lead a ship are called captains, even though full bird captain is its own rank. Other finance, yeah. Overshares time. We had plenty of those. I hope you guys have a week full of amazing. I'll be on Thursday with my I have a video for Thursday. How financial freedom is the fountain of youth. And then obviously not for the memory though. And then Saturday, it's ask yourself these 15 questions before you buy a rental or your next rental. Have an evening full of amazing. Sorry for the overshares at the end.